Hello friends, welcome to Universe of Naruto X. If you love Naruto what if stories and anime explanations, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin today's story. Nar groaned as he looked at the woman across the desk from him. Her mirthful green eyes meeting his own mix-matched glare with ease. The blonde silently wondered when her eyes started to fill with love when meeting his own, but did nothing to lessen the serious look he was giving her. You know you could have sent this by messenger hawk. You have many at your disposal as Mizukage Makan. Oh, I just couldn't miss the chance to have you here, Narukun. That playfulness in her tone forebode that this was just the beginning of the Minx plans. Besides, it will also allow you to escort me to Konoha for this year's official meeting. I suppose you'll use any free time we have to go me into as many dates as possible, he sighed, only for her grin to double in size, if that was even possible. Don't pretend like you don't love seeing me all dressed up for our excursions out, and I know you love the after even more. The blush lighting his cheeks only encouraged her grin growth. Besides, isn't it a husband's duty to spoil his lovely wife? We're not married yet, troublesome woman, the blonde deadpanned making her giggle. Consider it practice for our future then. Narukun. Naruto had to admit he couldn't argue any of her points, but that didn't make her any less troublesome as he had put it. I suppose it's fine, and I'll be back in Konoha in time for Oto's graduation from the academy. She knew this was his own way of submitting to her planning. Oh, and you'll even have a date for the event. She smiled, enjoying the groan that escaped his lips. How is my dear Menma-chan? She asked, finally getting her giggles under control. Nar raised a brow at the woman, still surprised by how attached she was to his family. Not to forget protective, his mix-matched eyes looked to the blue sky behind her. With any luck, he's in class as he should be, and not on the receiving end of a beating from Bond for skipping again. He sighed at the mental image, amazed at how his brother managed to survive their fearsome grandmother's rage at every turn. His eyes then found those mirthful green with a smirk spreading across his face. How about we catch up over a bowl or three of ramen? My treat. Well, I suppose I can make time in the busy schedule of the Mizukage for our honored guest, my future husband, no less, she smiled fondly at him. And in that moment, Naruto was reminded why he was so infatuated with this troublesome woman. With the grace of a goddess amongst men, she stood from her chair, sauntered around the desk and to the door with that antagonizing extra sway to her hips. Are you coming, Narukoi? XXX Yusuzuki Namikaze Menma sat as his brother had ordered of him in his classroom, an annoyed glare focused on the silver-haired teacher's assistant that hated him for no given reason. The man had not once, not twice, but thrice attempted to insult his intelligence, and each time the crimson-haired boy had turned it back on him, only for the pink-haired girl, Haruno Sakura, next to him to berate him for being rude to a teacher who he should supposedly always respect. His brother sure wouldn't respect the wimp, so why on earth would he ever consider it, especially when he started it every time? Menma, can you answer the question? Yumi no Uruka asked, a kind smile on his face as he looked expectantly to one of his more gifted students. This Chunin was the only person in the academy Menma respected and the only one who returned it wholeheartedly and was the actual teacher. The Kajbanchan is a jutsu initially created for scouting and spying, allowing the user to form a solid clone that when dispersed transfer all memory back to the original, which also makes it a great tool for training, he answered, his bored tone not lost to the man. But the chakra it takes to summon a single clone has marked it a forbidden jutsu, only learned by Jun or in special cases by those with enough chakra. The crimson-haired boy recited with practiced ease. It was an often asked question of him, considering it was the variant of the jutsu he himself used. Well done, Uraruka smiled, casting a hidden glare to his assistant for prior remarks before moving on with the lessons. The class went on as it normally did following Sakura, displaying exactly why she was the most likely to grasp the Kunoichi of the Year title with her vast knowledge. Uchiha Sasaki going unnoticed as he full-on slept on the other side of Menma. The other various clan heirs proving to be just as bored as them. It was really only the civilian populace these types of lessons were geared to. Most clan children having grown up immersed in it for all their lives. But it was also in an attempt to cement it within each student regardless of background. Not only that, but to assess their skills, what they excelled and lacked in, and to affirm they were ready for the life of genin, while also giving them some time to grow up with normal childhoods, unlike in the wearing clan era of the past. Now then, Uraruka's voice brought everyone's attention to him with ease, aside from the snoozing. That will be all for today, and I want you all to be sure you're taking your home training seriously with the genin exams coming at the end of next week. See you tomorrow children. He smiled before leaving with his assistant in tow. Menma the Uchiha next to him. Oi T, it's over. Wake up. Sasaki only grunted in response, glaring as he noticed the green eyes of their desk mate on him. The girl was beyond obsessed with him and it truly annoyed him to no end, especially considering he had no desire to even speak to the girl. Least of all not for the way she would berate his best friend one moment and then doted over him the next. It grated on his nerves. You going home to train? Or you want to grab something to eat? The Uchiha raised a brow at him. I'm not going to that ramen stand with you again. Besides, Enshin said he'd train me today. Menma glared at him. What's wrong with Ikyaku? It's the dish of the gods. He declared, annoyed by his blasphemous best friend. Nothing. You just eat like a slob. Sasaki replied with a smirk before waving his goodbye, leaving the crimson-haired boy to grumble. I'll join you if you want, Menma. The boy jumped at the new voice, spinning around to find a blonde-haired girl leaning down from the row above. She smiled fondly at him, her teal eyes meeting his violet expectantly. Menma's eyes narrowed at her. What's your motive, Enoch-chan? Yaman Nakaino laughed at his untrusting stare. I have no motives other than to have a meal with you, Menma. She paused for a moment, taking up a thoughtful look. This time, she added, making him face fault in her general direction. What do you say, forehead? You want to come? She asked, looking to the still scribbling Sakura. I guess if you're eating it, it can't be too bad. The girl sighed then glared at Menma for seemingly no cause. But don't you try anything funny, mister. The threat was clear, and while Menma knew he could stop any attack from her, he never raised a hand to Sakura. Hi, Sakura-chan, he nodded. The girl missing it when he rolled his eyes after she looked away. After waiting for the pink-haired girl to pack her things, the unlikely trio were off. Everyone else Ino attempted to involve having other plans. Menma was idly listening as the two girls conversed from either of his sides, beyond used to being stuck in between them. Outside of Sasaki, Inazuka Kiba, Naru Shikamaru, and Akamaiki Choji, these two were amongst his best friends, and he often hung out with them and just them. Not much longer found the three sitting in the famed, namely thanks to his brother, ramen stand. Menma eating his favorite dish with gusto, while the girls on either of his sides ate at a more subdued pace. All three, yes, especially Menma, had frequented the stand to a large degree, in part thanks to this generation's mild obsession with the head of the reborn Uzumaki clan, Naruto. It wasn't rare to find them asking the shinobi for pointers and even just about his career as a shinobi. Honestly, all it did was make men strive for the same recognition someday. Though, if he had to be honest with himself, he only wanted one person's recognition at the moment, and that was the pink-haired civilian next to him. The girl, seemingly oblivious to his short glances in her direction as they ate, and surely oblivious to his attraction to her. But on the same token, the crimson-haired boy was painfully unaware of the glances cast his way by the girl to his other side. It had been a dynamic Naruto had amusedly caught on to early on, mainly in part to Mei actually pointing it out to him. However, it did land the pink-haired civilian under the fearsome blonde scrutiny, half wondering why his brother was infatuated with the girl. The other half of him wondering why his brother subjected himself to the girl's brash temper and fangirl tendencies towards Sasaki, especially with another girl his age clearly interested. But it also reminded the blonde of how dubiously block-headed and unobservant to the fairer he once was. Ino sighed from the youngest Usuzumakis left, bringing the boy's attention to her with a curious look. Well, I really should be heading home. Tu-chan is probably wondering where I've been, she explained, earning a small smirk from the Uzumaki. Still as protective as ever of his little princess, Ino smirked back at the teasing way he called her that, but nodded nonetheless. It's the right of a daughter to have her father wrapped. Menma chuckled before sharing a goodbye with the girl, Sakura, promising to see her tomorrow. I suppose that means I should leave, too. I need to do some training, the civilian girl admitted. And Menma looked to her with a smile. You could always come train with me, Sakura-chan. The pinkette suppressed her glare at the boy and allowed herself to smile. It wasn't the first time he'd offered and knew all too well it wouldn't be the last. Maybe next time, baka. Came the usual response, her smile becoming slightly sweet before she too got up and left him alone. Well, I guess I should get back too. Erosen is probably waiting to train me some. The boy sighed, leaving money on the counter and calling out his goodbye to the shop owner. Tuki called out his own goodbye, grumbling at seeing once again an Uzumaki had overpaid and left the change. Not too much later, and the young teen walked into his home, finding Jiraiya planted at a desk with paperwork all around him. The stray curse and grumble were easy enough to pick up, Naruto's name being one of them, as the man glared at the papers. Apparently, Naruto had left him in charge of the clan work while he was on mission to Kiri, and the Sonin was anything but pleased. So, that's your plan, Gaki. He heard the man sigh, looking at a seemingly innocent sheet of paper with some trepidation. Should have put you into the fold with the network long ago. If so, he shook his head, still not noticing the crimson-haired boy. Aroin, you still going to train me today? The white-haired man looked up at that, a smile instantly spreading across his face as he looked at his get-out-of-jail-free card. Without a moment's notice, 2 clones came into existence, taking over the man's work without even a word. Can't lie, kid. I definitely need the break. I don't see how that brother of yours puts up with all of that underscore, Jiraiya proclaimed with a glare over his shoulder at the paperwork. It explains why he gets so grumpy all the time. I guess Menma shrugged, not really knowing any of the intricacy that went into his brother's duties. Nor, in all honesty, did he care. Being the clan head wasn't his path, nor was it what he wanted from the future. His only dream being to take the same hat his father once wore and be twice the cage he would have been. It sure does, and he's managing to keep me from my research without even being here, the pervert grumbled, pushing open the back door and leading Menma into the backyard. I turn the spy network I establish over to him specifically so I can focus on my next book, and then he just tosses it back in my lap with an extra load. Menma knew this line of complaint. It was the same one he got whenever his brother left on mission. And more times than not, it led to his grandfather going a little harder than necessary in their training. But the crimson-haired boy took it in stride. Like his brother, he loved the challenge and soaked knowledge up like a sponge when given the opportunity. No, by no means did that mean he was what people like to call a genius. He was a proud and brash underscore, at heart, and always would be. But hard work was his bread and butter, and it suited him well. All right, Gaki. Nothing too crazy. Nar doesn't want you learning anything too stupendous until after you graduate in 2 weeks, Jiraiya explained, and Menma was fully aware. Like always, this training session would be for his taijutsu and chakra control, something his brother always grinded into him. But I will allow you to start using ninja tools of your choosing, anything you like. I want you to come straight at me with the intent to kill. The toad sage smirked, seeing that devious foxy grin on his youngest grandson's face. Having everything out in the open, secrets long since hidden before even the boy's father was alive, felt so good to Jiraiya. Being able to say Minato was his son, even if he was long since deceased, and call Naruto and Menma his grandsons was all the man had ever truly yearned for. Plus, Sununade had been much more accepting to his advances, and that was always a win in his mind, most definitely. So, lost in his musings, the self-proclaimed super pervert nearly missed his youngest throwing a Fuma shuriken directly at him. But his grandson was caught completely off guard when Jiraiya did the impossible, stopping the blade with his teeth. The man smiled almost insanely at the boy, laughing at him with the blade still in his mouth. You're going to have to do better than that, Gaki. His mumbled voice said. Menma honestly should have expected something so crazy from his grandfather. The man set the precedent for being unpredictable. But with that, their training truly began, completely oblivious to the watching eyes of Hazel. XXXX. Nar smiled up at the beige ceiling above him, his bedmates breathing ragged at best as her hot breath tickled the growing stubble on his chin. I really do enjoy having you to myself, Naruto. Even if one day I'll have to share, the exquisite woman next to him breathed, and he could basically feel her emotion radiating to him. I'm sorry again for that. In all honesty, you're the first woman I've ever yearned for, and haven't the first clue about what being with multiple women entails, he admitted with a sigh. The circumstances of his predicament becoming his guilt. Whatever happens, at least I'll always be able to say you were mine first. She smiled, brushing her hand against his chiseled chest. Not a scar was present on him, aside from the one marring his beautiful right eye. And honestly, it still amazed her to this day. She herself had several scars across her body. And to be completely fair, they made her a bit self-conscious when compared to his imperfect skin. But Nar being Nar had told her they only accentuated her beauty and was visible proof he'd be marrying a kunoichi and not just a simple woman. May, for all she was worth, loved that about him, the equality he gave her, and the respect he had for her. Gingerly, she lifted herself to sit atop his muscular form, a shapely leg on either side of him. She would have been a fool not to notice Naruto's obsession with her long legs, and as if to cement that infatuation, his hands greedily found them and massaged them. Before we get into round 2, maybe you can answer some for me. Nar knew that tone, and even with the seductive hint of it, and the way she leaned down to press herself fully against his body, he knew she wanted to talk shop. I suppose becoming the spy master in my grandfather's stead does give me the insight you probably desire. She smiled at his response, rewarding him with a loving kiss. What exactly has kept you so busy as of late? Your letters have displayed a sense of exhaustion, she asked, continuing her idle kissing of his cheeks, chin, and neck. She knew it was distracting him, but she also was fully aware he loved it, at least judging from what was pressing against her toned stomach. There has been a lot recently, actually. Another reason I'm glad your stay in Konoha will be extended this time around, he answered, grunting as he felt her body rub up against his. He loved the way they were, the teasing of theirs not ceasing for a moment, especially not when his hands glided from her thighs to her toned rear. How will your counsel do without you here? Oh, San will keep them in line. He knows my expectations, she whispered in between more kisses. Now, why don't you quit trying to distract me and give me some more detail? She asked before his ear and whispering, I promise to reward you. Nar chuckled at that. According to a particularly well-embedded spy of mine, the snake has been making quite a lot of plans for the exams in a little over 6 months. In her last report that I actually went in person to receive, there will be a joint attack on Konoha. Her musing stopped there for but a moment. Naruto feeling her worry. No reason for that. Mizuhime, I've already started making plans for the snake. It's unfortunate, but my spy will surely be outed when I move against him after he enacts his plan. Do I need to have forces prepared for assistance? Her worry was still there, but Naruto effortlessly kissed her forehead and smiled. Not for now. I'll tell you more later. For now, that wolfish smirk came to his face, and before she knew it, she found herself under him. I believe you mentioned a reward for my cooperation. Nay, Mizuhime. She nearly screamed when his lip assaulted her, knowing full well what her weaknesses were. She couldn't help the tightening in her nether regions as she felt the iron-like grip on her wrists now held above her head. Such a naughty boy, Narukun. The purr escaped her lips before their after-hours escapades started a new XXX. Jiraiya suddenly looked up from the haggarded Menma, a confused look on his face. For some reason, I feel a tingling in the perversion that tells me I should be proud of Naruto, he mumbled, looking thoughtful. Menma looked beaten, but managed to give his grandfather a look that belayed how stupid he thought the man was in that moment. How I ended up with such a stupid pervert for a grandfather. I'll never understand, the boy complained, earning an aghast look from the white-haired man. I'm not stupid, the man simply responded, only making Menma look at him as if he found a new lower level of stupidity. Anyway, Sununade him probably has dinner nearly done. Go get cleaned up and let's eat. Oroigi the boy grumbled doing as he was told. Jiraiya-sama a new figure asked the older shinobi looking back to see a masked Anu bowing before him. Hokage-sama has summoned you something that cannot wait. The man said before disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. Damn monkey can't even let me enjoy a simple dinner with my family. He sighed before making his way to inform Sununade and then to the said monkey's office. Within 10 minutes, he was already stepping in through the window of the Hokage office, essentially his family's special entrance. What is it that couldn't have waited? The Sandame regarded his former student, noting his clear annoyance. Forgive my intrusion on your evening, but I've opened a report from one of Naruto's contacts, he sighed, tossing the man the scroll before lighting his pipe. It would seem our snake problem of old has a few tricks up his sleeve for the coming months, starting with the academy graduation. So, you want me to go ahead and squash the bug? We know who it is, and quite frankly, it explains his attitude towards Menma, Jiraiya said, seemingly a bit bored as he read the encrypted message. No, I want them to have a false sense of security. When he makes his move, then we will respond, the Hokage said with an exhale of smoke. After all, I'd very much like to know what it is my old student is after with this move of his. From what it says here, a plethora of things, our forbidden scroll being one of the first, and well, I suppose you know the rest. The toad sage let out a sigh of resignation, wondering why the old monkey wanted them to even wait. But he wasn't foolhardy enough to not know the man had some inclination of a plan for it. For the moment, I want you to keep an eye on Menma's class. See if there's anything you can learn. His order was clear, and all it served to do was make the Suning groan. First, Nar makes more work for me, and now you want to add this on my plate. I'm supposed to be retired. The glare was ever present, and only caused the aged Cage to chuckle. You know, retirement is never a true thing for people in our line of work. Jiryakin, no, go and enjoy the rest of your night. I won't disturb you again until needed. The monkey waved him off, turning to look out his window at the monument of the cage. I'm sure you would have loved to see all of this and what your family has grown into. Minato-kun Kusha-chan, he thought solemnly, not fighting the small smile thinking of those two brought him. XXX Nar stood patiently in a clearing halfway in between the border of Hakuni and Konohagure, nearly exactly halfway in between. A few steps behind him was Mei, waiting just as patiently as her husband-to-be. However, the third to their traveling party back to Konoha, Mimochi Zabuza, was beyond antsy by this point. What is it exactly we're waiting for here, Yaki? Nar sighed at the differently worded question he'd already answered twice. Now, just be patient, Zabuza-sensei. They're nearly here. Not much longer, he said with a sigh, earning yet another grunt from the man. Trust me, I'd much rather be on our way back to Konoha, but our delayed stay in Kiri forced me behind schedule. May gave his back a weak glare. She knew that was directed towards her in some way or form. Forcefully, having to bite back the retort that he hadn't been complaining in her private quarters about them being behind schedule. But she knew now was not the time nor the place, and chose to just watch the blonde as he stood there. He was wearing a pair of black pants taped around the calves that went down into his black shinobi sandals, a black long-sleeved shirt with the crimson swirl of the uzumaki on either shoulder with the sleeves rolled up in his green junin vest with a similar symbol on the back. But possibly her favorite part of the attire was the gift she had presented him with during their time in her home village. It was a white battlecloth hanging from his waist, blue flames licking the bottom with an intricate depiction of a snarling wolf and the newly instated symbol of the reborn Uzumaki clan. The crimson swirl standing out on the front of the cloth seemingly growing out of a brilliant blue lotus. He had worn the garment nearly non-stop since she gave it to him. The man actually complaining that he hadn't gotten her anything so nice. Just as her eyes were beginning to wander over his form for a third time, she heard the sound of leaves rustling before someone burst from the foliage above, immediately falling to a knee before Nar. The first thing she noticed was the girl's long red hair and then the strange outfit she wore. If she had to compare it to anything, it would be what Naruto had described Orochimaru's usual attire as. Not that she knew how the boy knew that, but she just chalked that up to the boy's most recent occupation for his village. Report. His voice stern and commanding, something she rarely heard. Orochimaru has received word that your brother was the one to stop his spy, Mizuki, from stealing the forbidden scroll of sealing. She looked up, revealing brown eyes to him, but also a new scar on her chin. He assumed the snake had taken it out on his subordinate, and for a moment he needed to rein in his anger. What of his future plans? They're all in this scroll. I don't want to speak any details aloud. Very well. Stand up and turn around, the blonde ordered, and May found herself raising a curious brow at that one. If for some reason he suspects you, the seal I'm placing on your lower spine will allow you to call me for evacuation. Has he done something new to your curse, Mark? The girl, maybe at most 2 or 3 years, his younger, was thankful he couldn't see her face or the blush present from his hand working over her back. But she could feel the glare on her back from the other woman in the clearing. He's unlocked the second form of the mark. If not for the damn seal you placed on my scalp, I'm sure I would have lost my mind to the disgusting chakra it brings out. Language, his voice once more stern, only earning a nod from the girl. This will be the last time we meet like this until things start. I don't want him to discover you or any of our other friends. Nay to Yuya-chan. Hi, Naruto-sama. He could hear the smile in her voice before patting her on the back and watching as she sped off. So, now we can head out. Nar groaned at the voice of the swordsman before tiredly nodding with an eye roll. As the group fell into pace, May and Nar drifted behind a bit. You know she's got a thing for you, right? Nar immediately raised his brow at his future wife. You kidding, right? How would you figure something like that? Call it woman's intuition. At least she's cute. The woman shrugged, now making the blonde look at her as if she'd grown a second head. Oh, don't act so innocent and oblivious. That stopped working on me long ago. Naruto. The purr made his spine shiver. Why did she even purr that? You utterly confuse me. XXX. Menma smiled foxily, proudly sitting in his spot with a shiny new Konoha hit 8 around his forehead. It was the day following the exams and ceremony that his brother had actually made it in time for every newly minted genin waiting for team assignments. It was nearly a week after Mizuki had attacked him on his way out with the forbidden scroll, leading to the Uzumaki deftly kicking the chunins. In short, the crimson-haired boy was beyond elated with himself and the happenings of the past week. As per usual, Sasaki slept undisturbed. To his left, Sakura on his right looking googly-eyed at the Uchiha and Ino directly behind him. Though he was unaware of the Yamanaka's googly eyes pointedly staring at him, per usual, Yumino Oraruka chose that moment to walk in. A clipboard under his arm and a smile on his face. Good morning, Janine. Each former student returned his smile at that. Congratulations once more to all of you here for passing. It was a joy to have each of you here the past years. Moving forward into your career, I want you all to know that things will be getting much harder for you. The path of a shinobi is seldom ever an easy one, and rarely is one's life not in danger on our chosen path. I want you all to heed this warning. Do your best and learn everything your Junin captains have to teach you. It may just save your life someday. With his speech at an end, he got to the duty of calling out team assignments. Team 7, Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasaki and Uzumaki Namikaze Menma, your Junin instructor will be Hideki Kakashi. Sakura cheered at being on the same team as Sasaki, even if she had to wait through the first 6 team announcements to find out. Sasaki merely smirked at Menma, who shot back that foxy grin of his before the two-fist bumped. Team 8, Abarame Shino, Hyuga, Hinata, and Inazuka Ka. Your sensei will be Yui Kurana. Oruka continued looking up at the happy yip of Ka's Ninken Akamaru before returning to his duty. Team 9 remains in rotation from last year. So Team 10 will be Akamaiki Choji, Nurikamaru, and Yamanaka Inino. Your sensei will be Serbia Asuma. And with that comes the end of my job. Your senseis will arrive shortly. Good luck, man. Why can't I be on the team with Menmaken? You've got all the luck forehead. Ino pouted rather cutely. You can have him, Sakura said, making the crimson-haired boy pout. I'm just happy to be on a team with Sashkun. Her smile was large, completely unaware of the annoyed look sent by Sejikia. Yo, Team 7, I'll be leading you to your meeting place. Menma found himself shocked to look up and find his older brother standing there with a Kakashi-styled eye smile. Whispers about the man seemed to break out amongst the freshly minted teens, making him look around curiously. Was it something I said? You've kind of got that effect, Ni-chan, even if half of them already know you, Menma explained, walking up to stand next to his brother, shortly followed by Sasaki. Sakura-chan, you coming? He asked the still-sitting girl, his foxy grin on full display. Oi, Pinky, I don't have all day, Nar grumbled. A small glare sent at the girl who bolted to his side after receiving it. My name is Sakura, not Pinky. And my brother's name is Menma, not Baka. The youngest Uzumaki was rather surprised Sakura actually had the guts to full-on match his brother's glare, but was even more surprised when his brother smirked widely. You've got guts, Pinky. I respect that, Sakura. Whatever, Pinky. Menma was positive he'd be receiving the punishment for his brother's nickname of his new teammate. He knew Sakura all too well. XXXXXXX. Roughly an hour later, the group of 4 sat on the roof of the academy, only one of them patiently awaiting the arrival of their Weward sensei. That one person being Menma, as even Nar was idly glaring at anything. Sakura was glaring at the blonde, and Sasaki was he was asleep. Thank you for picking up the students, Nar. A black cat crossed my path and his excuse wasn't allowed to continue as the blonde shot a canny at him that forced him to duck. You've become lazy since leaving the Anduni-chan. I suppose that's why the old monkey asked me to help with your team. The blonde glared heatedly, making the elder Junin look at him sheepishly. Anyway, Sasaki Menma, you already know Kakashini. Pinky meet Hideki. Kakashi Sakura, what's Pinky's problem? Kakashi asked, making the girl all out fume with unbridled anger. Yep, Menma was definitely going to catch the brunt of this. Damn it, my name is Haruno Sakura. She emphasized her words by decking the crimson-haired boy next to her. Nar responded by chucking a kunai at her, the blunted ring of it smacking into her forehead and sending her flying across the rooftop. Bad Pinky, he admonished the now unconscious girl, making Kakashi sigh. I believe you went too far, Odo. The Junin sensei sighed, visibly displeased. She's fine. Look, she's already getting back up, the blonde pointed out. And Kakashi was surprised to see the girl stumbling back to where she had flown from, now sitting obediently where once before she had unashamedly glared at the blonde and hit his odoto. G-men. Naruto-sama, she said, making the blonde raise a brow before shrugging. Menma had long since returned to his spot, looking at Sakura with some worry in his violet eyes. Alright, now that we're all settled, Sasaki, wake up, Kakashi began, sending a bored look to the boy who easily did as asked, yawning loudly. Now then, let's move on to formal introduction, including my assistant Jun instructor, Hiei smiled, jabbing a thumb at the eldest Uzumaki. I'm going to snap that monkey in half for making me do something so troublesome. Kakashi only chuckled at that before continuing on with ease. Kakashi gave them his notorious eye smile. I'll start us off. Naruto and the rest of you will follow. His eye smile only seemed to deepen at his words. My name is Hideki Kakashi. I like a lot of different things, dislike a few, and don't entirely have a dream of any kind for the future. Each of the genin, even Naruto, could only deadpan at the man's flippant attitude. He literally only told them his name at most. The blonde sighed deeply. Guess that means it's my turn. My name is Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. I'm the head of the Uzumaki clan. I like nature, ramen, Mikhan, and my family. He sent a small smile to his brother. I dislike those who judge without knowing fangirls and traitors. As for my dreams of the future, I wish to find a lasting peace for the shinobi world and see my clan reborn. He smiled before looking towards Sakura. Ladies first, Pinky. Sakura weakly glared at the nickname, now knowing better than to piss of their secondary sensei. My name is Haruno Sakura. I like reading, refining my chakra control and dango. If Naruto gathered anything from the side glance she sent Sasaki, there was one more thing she wished to add to that list but left out for whatever reason. I dislike loud and rude people and people who underestimate others. As for my dream, I want to be a medic nin and marry someone special to me again. She sent a glance towards the Yaning Uchiha who seemed anything but impressed. My turn, Menma declared, his foxy grin ever present. My name is Yusuzuki Namikaze Menma, and I like ramen training in my family. Again, a smile was shared between the two brothers. I dislike the 3 minutes it takes to cook cup ramen, that Ba-chan won't let me eat all the ramen I want. Perverts and traitors. I dream to help Ni-chan with his dreams and take the Hogue hat from the old monkey. He beamed at that, showing 2 thumbs up. HN Sasaki grunted before continuing in a sedate pace. My name is Uchiha Sasaki. I like some things and dislike a great deal more, especially traitors. Naruto seemed annoyed at the aloof way the boy started, but his eyes softened at the final statement. It would seem the youngest Uchiha had been holding his father's actions close in mind. I don't really have a dream, more of an ambition to bring a certain man to justice. He glared at the ground as a pair of distinct manjikyo flashed through his mind. Nar and Kakashi shared a look, the blonde not liking the goal of his best friend's kid brother in the slightest. He'd be sure to keep a close eye on the boy. Well, I think that sums us up. Kaka Seni, the blonde nonchalantly smiled, earning an eye smile from the hockey. Good. I want each of you to head home. Tomorrow it will be you 3 and I going through your first test as a team. Meet at training ground 7. He eyes smiled before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Well, I have other places to be. I'll see you Gakis later. And Pinky, he smirked when the girl glared at him. Should you all pass Kakashi's test tomorrow, come home with Menma, and I'll introduce you to someone who may be able to help with one of your goals. With that, the blonde vanished in a Raiden shunt that mystified Sakura, the only one not used to seeing it. So, Menma smiled brightly. How about we go out for our first dinner as a team? No ramen, Sasaki immediately said, making the crimson-haired boy pout greatly. Fine, we can go to the Akamaiki barbecue. I'll even pay, he smiled, earning a nod from the Uchiha. The black-haired boy most likely already thinking about their fire-roasted tomato dish. You and Sakura Aiken. His smile for the first time to the pinkett was infectious. Sure. I didn't know you actually ate anything other than ramen, she pointed out with a small laugh. Menma chuckled. As much as I'd like to. Ba-chan says I'd be if I did. And she was reminded that he indeed was the tallest of them, if only by inches at best. Hurry up, you two, Sasaki called over his shoulder, already jumping to the adjacent rooftop, neither seemingly taking notice of his momentary departure. Sweet. Taking the Kona Speedway, the crimson-haired boy smirked, easily knocked from his sudden surprise. Hope you can keep up, Sakura. Aiken, Dad Biao. Her green eyes widened as he sped off to catch up. Hey, wait a damn minute, Shara. All the while, the 3 were unaware of their pair of sensei watching them with smiles. Maybe they won't be as hard to manage as you originally thought. Naruto smiled, knowing he was quite possibly wrong. Give them time. Their faults will show and we'll correct them. Kakashi smiled. Actually smiled. But they just might pass my test on their first chance. Naruto laughed. All of my team grew up together, and it took us until the second try to pass. They'll be the same, he joked, remembering fondly the times of old behind him. My gen and team was much the same. The silver-haired Junin agreed. Anyway, don't forget to send a Kajbanchan to watch the happenings of the test tomorrow. Nah, I'll be there with Mei-chan, she been waiting for me long enough. Yan Kakani, he smiled before disappearing in a horizon. Kakashi, only I smiled, laying down on the roof and pulling out his favorite book. It was a quiet enough place for the lazy Junin to sit back and enjoy his book, Ika Ika Tactics, The Wolf and the Water Priestess. He released a perverted giggle. Jiraiya-sama is quite lucky Otto has yet to read his latest installment. He ideally noted a certain white-haired super pervert sneezing and alerting the hot spring full of women he was spying on. XXX. The blonde reappeared within his room, smiling at the Mizukage, curled into the couch, reading the scroll he had been given by his contact a few days prior. He was teaching her his coding system. Being his future wife, it would only prove to help them both, especially if she needed to send him something privately. Welcome home, Narutkin. She smiled, looking up to him. You're getting better at sensing me, Mayan. He chuckled, taking a seat next to her and pulling her to him. How goes your learning? It's not too complex or too simple of a thing to learn. She yawned, nuzzling back into that strange ever-present warmth of his. What did you think of Minakan's team? Well, I've left an impression on the girl on his team, Haruno Sakura. He chuckled, the woman raising a brow at him. I threw the blunt end of kana at her forehead after she hit Menma. Seems obsessed with Sasaki, but I think I can work those fangirl tendencies out of her. Imagine when they find out how calculative you were to purposefully target such a thing, she smirked, knowing full well where his planning was leading. She herself, being the kunoichi she was, hated the idea of fangirl kunoichi being sent out on a team. They were just too immature and distracted for some of the subtleties of being a shinobi, just holding on to their childish ways. But it also made her wonder if even at the age of 13 if they were still too young to become shinobi. Well, I've also offered that Menma bring her here should they pass tomorrow to meet Ba-chan, hoping she'll be willing to help the girl with her dream. She wishes to be a medic. Yes. And of course, Sununade would be the best to help her with that dream. But the decision is up to Sununade if she helps or not. So then you intend to focus on Menma's training and Kakashi on Sasaki while Tsunade helps Sakura. No, I'll be helping each of them equally. I don't like shirking responsibility and despite their faults, I do see a lot of potential in their future. May finally sighed, relaxing back into his firm, muscular chest. You want to go out for some drinks? Naruto shrugged. I mean, if your only intention is to get in my pants, I have plenty to drink here. His laugh when she popped his chest was wolfish. Damn pervert, she grumbled, getting up to put on some comfortable clothes. I was kidding. And it's not like you weren't holding that as your endgame, Mikhan, he chuckled, standing and removing his flak jacket and waistcloth. He took the time to place them on the display he kept in his room, where his mother's katana now stayed, unless he was on mission or summoned it. May smiled slightly as she watched him gently fold the cloth, gingerly placing it right under the displayed katana and Junin vest. But her look became leering when he pulled his shirt over his head, freely displaying those rippling muscles she loved so much. You're gawking again. His tease earned a dress thrown his way, igniting a blush on his face. Now it was his turn to gawk as the dress fell from his face, revealing her bare goddess-like figure to his eyes. Curves in the absolutely most perfect of places. Shapely legs that went on for miles and a firm cellulite-free rear. You're gawking again. She laughed at turning his words against him. Oh, how she loved the way his eyes drank her in like it was the first time every time he saw her like this. She could literally feel the pout directed at her as she pulled a pair of black leggings on, hiding what was most certainly his two favorite parts of her figure, her thighs and butt. She took the moment, still shirtless, to saunter over to him with that damnable sway to her hips. Later. My wolf, now get dressed, she said, nearly making him break as she pushed her well-endowed chest against him as she kissed his cheek. Damn minx, he grumbled, pulling a plain orange long-sleeve shirt over his head. May heard him and smiled as she walked to his closet, pulling out a blue long-sleeved shirt that was clearly too big for her, bearing the markings of the Uzumaki Namikaze clan on its back. Nar smiled at this habit of hers, knowing full well she had several very similar shirts of different colorations in her closet back in Kuriger. If he was completely honest with himself, he loved that she wore his clothing to be comfy. And Cammy did she look gorgeous in them. You ready? She smiled. And Nar pulled her towards him, crashing his lips to hers. After a moment, May pulled back, giggling. And what was that for? You know what, for you damn minx, he smirked, taking her hand in his and leading her out. Ba-chan, we're going out for the night, he called out as they neared the entryway of the home. Don't worry, I won't let him get too drunk, Sununade Ba-sama. It still felt odd to May calling her idol such, but the woman had insisted since the day their marriage was announced to the public. Thank you, Mikhan. Nar glared at the call of his grandmother, then turned it to the woman at his side, only to receive that damnable giggle of hers before she pulled him out of the house with ease. XXXX. The next morning saw Naruto sitting in a tree concealed from any watching eyes with a bottle of sake in his hand and a snoozing May's head rested on his shoulder. He held his sharing an eye closed, the eye proving to increase the severity of his headache. His blue eye being focused on the three Jenny and Kakashi would be responsible for. I see I wasn't the only one with idea of watching our brother's trial. A subdued voice spoke, Naruto just grunting in the man's general vicinity. Long night of drinking, Itachi stated, having seen the blonde like this on more than one occasion. Naruto nodded his head, extending his sake bottle towards the Uchiha clan heir. What Jiraiya and Tsunade had taught him was the polite thing to do. The Uchiha shrugged, actually accepting the sake and taking a short sip. Couldn't have been too long of a night if you're still drinking. He chuckled, earning a smirk from his friend. Best thing for a hangover is to drink it away, or so Jiraiya says, he chuckled back, feeling May begin to wake. As that Ko-sensei of yours still not here, she yawned, having had the time to simply sleep off her own hangover. It's the Kakashi way, Naruto and Itachi said at the same time, both nodding sagely for whatever reason. I'll take that as a no, she shook her head, honestly not used to it from the man. He'd never done anything of the sort during the rebellion. But she supposed it was different times. What have those three been doing for the most part? Plotting their vengeance against Kochani. But they've also managed to put together a plan of some kind. I honestly wasn't paying enough attention. And with my sharing increasing my headache, I couldn't read their lips, the blonde answered, earning a sympathetic look from his female companion. Down below, Sakura was looking at Menma as if he'd lost his mind, or rather, like she'd never seen him before. He wasn't being the normal prankster, quirky, loudmouth idiot she had become accustomed to during their academy days. The crimson-haired boy was displaying a tactical mind and a sharp one at that. As they talked over their plan, apparently, the Uzumaki had deduced that this would be a test of their abilities to work as a team. Sasaki quickly agreeing with his own smirk. Okay, so what are we going to do to show teamwork exactly? The pink kid asked, honestly curious as to see how well he'd thought this through. Well, Kakashi knows Sasuke and I know how to work together. So, after we first take the chance to hide and regroup, the two of us are going to charge in and engage. That should give you an opening to go after whatever it is he's going to be holding over our heads. I'm assuming bells. The bell test is a time-honored test that the Nadim introduced when training the Sandang. Just about every Junin sensei uses it. I remember Naruto having to do it with Mikoto when I was younger. He paused as it seemed Sakura had a question to ask. How are you so sure he's going to use this test even if it is tradition? It's Kakashi sensei. He's too lazy to come up with something else. The crimson-haired boy deadpanned. Sasaki nodding in agreement. Sakura had no means to argue that point. It was the first impression the man's attitude quite literally bashed her over the head with. So what if this plan doesn't work? Or if it does, the pink kid was quick to move on to her next question. Well, from what I remember, there's only going to be 2 bells supposedly for 2 genin to pass and the third to fail. But that's the trick in it. One of us will have to willingly give up the bell we'd initially be thrown to show we'd fail for our team if necessary. If we don't take the bell, then we still proved we can work as a team and we'll just have to cement it as we continue to go through the test, Menma explained. Sasaki now raising a brow. That's if Kakashi remembers to actually show up, the youngest Uchiha grumbled, earning a sweat drop from his best friend. Touché. XXX. Roughly an hour and a half later, the Genin's trial had now been going on for 30 minutes. The three standing shoulder to shoulder as they panted from exhaustion. Kakashi was eyes smiling at them like he hadn't made them wait a total of 3 hours. His orange little book happily within his grasp. He was honestly surprised to see them working together like this. Menma and Sasaki wasn't such a surprise, but Sakura actually putting her infatuation aside and working just as hard as the two boys was more than he could have expected. Maybe he should have actually bet Naro. These three were definitely passing so far. But he still wanted to see if they could actually manage to get the bells from him, which meant no more gains. With that thought, he clapped his book shut, returning it back to his kunai pouch, and began reaching to lift his headband. Menma and Sasaki were the first to move, both knowing full well what that article of clothing hid. Sasaki was the first to make it to the Junin, sending a high axe kick to his head. Menma came shortly behind him, sending his own kick to the man's thigh in an attempt to buckle his knee. But the seasoned Junin was quick to block both strikes and pull up his headband regardless, displaying that sharing he was famed for owning. No more gains, Janine. It's time for make or break. Menma quickly jumped forward, continuing his attempts to hit his older brother figure turned sensei. But the Junin was now moving faster, easily countering the blonde as if it was nothing. However, Kakashi missed Sasaki flipping away and making hand signs, but not the smirk on the crimson-haired boy's face. Kaden Gyaku no Jutsu. The Uchiha roared and Kakashi's eyes widened. Menma was still in the way and would be hit with the jutsu. Quickly unleashing a kick to the still smirking boy's side. His eyes widened as who he just kicked disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Keibanchin, when he couldn't think about it, then he had to move out of the line of literal fire. Quickly putting all of his weight onto his planted foot and channeling some chakra for good measure, he jumped clear over the impressively sized fireball. His eyes widened in shock again, however, as a barrage of kai came into his line of vision coming from his pink-haired student. The mask he wore hid a proud smile as he used the ultimate cop-out, Kavarami, to substitute himself for one of the logs that littered the training ground. He was quickly back on the attack, charging for the team's weakest member, Sakura. But as he reached halfway, his eyes widened when he saw several Menmas burst from the ground all around him. So, you've gotten better with the Kaibanchin. And in general, no wonder you were able to beat a Chunin. Kakashi smiled proudly at him, earning that foxy grin. But there was no respite as the clones jumped him. Sasaki joining the fray and Sakura hanging back to throw Kana at him if he escaped. But her green eyes widened when within seconds there were 6 pops. And then the real Menma and Sasaki were sent careening past her. Just you and me now, Pinky. His tone was jovial and flippant all at once, and it annoyed Sakura greatly. He watched as the girl pulled a fresh canny from her weapon's pouch, taking a taijutsu stance. It's an academy stance, but it's one of the best they taught, and it seems she's quite confident in it, he thought as he pulled a kunai from his holster to match his student. Come on, show me what you can do, he taunted, motioning her towards him with his hand. They traded blades for a moment, the girl showing her skill to be higher than Kakashi had initially thought. He was mildly impressed with the girl and had plenty enough time to see any and all blaring weaknesses. He'd keep them in mind to correct them later, and he was sure their audience would do the same. Just as he was about to kick the girl, his eyes widened when Menma caught the appendage, a feral glare directed straight at him. But not a moment later, that glare became a grin when 3 more clones burst from the ground. One grabbing him in a full Nelson, the other grabbing his planted leg, and the third snatching the bells from his waist. Kakashi allowed his eyes to widen as Menma flipped away after grabbing Sakura in his arms, his clone and Sasuke joining him. The clone handing him the 2 bells after he sat a blushing Sakura on her feet. But the smile came to his face when the crimson-haired Yu Suzuki handed Sasaki 1 bell and another to Sakura, beaming as the girl thanked him. Well, Team 7, it's official. You pass. XXX. Nar sat on the branch high above, looking at his brother's back with a proud smile. Itachi and Mei doing much of the same. Well, it looks like you two are stuck with them now. Itachi chuckled, proud that his brother had worked so hard with his team for this win of theirs. I guess you'll be having to spend more time away from me when I am here in village. Mei pouted, Naro shaking his head at her exasperatedly, is all you think about dates and monopolizing my time when you're here. Mei looked thoughtful for more than a moment, her finger pressed to her chin as she looked towards the sky for added effect before turning to him and proudly saying, yes. Nar rolled his eyes and chuckled at her before kissing her cheek. Damn, minx. Looks like Kakashi has finished his speech and they're leaving already, Itachi noted. Far beyond used to these two being all lovey-dovey around him. Kakashi ni is a cheap Kate. They'll be headed to Ikyaku, Naruto said, standing on the branch and offering his hand to Mei to help her up. The woman accepted it easily, looking forward to joining her future brother-in-law's team for this celebratory lunch. You coming? Itachi shook his head in the negative. I have to return to Ka-chan. She's still training me in the procedures of the clan head. Tell sensei I'll come by and see her soon. I'm sure she could use the distraction from her newly busy schedule. The blonde laughed, earning a thankful smile from his friend. Be sure to take good care of my Otudo when the real missions begin, he asked, bumping the blonde's offered fist as they usually did to say goodbye. As if he was my own, Naruto smiled before the 3 disappeared. Itachi heading in the opposite direction. It wasn't long before the blonde and his companion landed gracefully in front of the ramen stand. The young team already inside, judging from the boisterous voice of Menma within, Mei lead the way, sneaking up behind her future brother-in-law to surprise him with a hug. The crimson-haired boy jumping in surprise. Mei-ne-chan, what are you doing here? You didn't honestly think we weren't watching, did you, Odo? Nar answered for the doting woman, smiling at his little brother with pride. I'm very proud of how all 3 of you did in your trial today. And as such, the lunch is on me. He smiled, pointedly, giving Sakura a longer glance than the 2 boys. And don't worry, I'll make good on my promise from yesterday. Sakura beamed at that, having already deduced who she was hopefully going to meet today. The only medical ninja she knew within the Uzumaki clan was Senune, her all-time idol. Thank you, Naruto-sensei. Sure thing, Pinky. He chuckled, patting the girl on the head before taking the open seat next to his Otudo. Mei sitting next to him and continuing her doting over the boy as the blonde placed their order. The team, their sensei, and their guest all talked animatedly as they waited for their meal and throughout the entire thing. This being the first time Sakura had not seen Menma eating bowl after bowl like a man possessed. Apparently, the Mizukage brought some of the forgotten manners out of him. And it was that fact that made her wonder how much she didn't know about the boy. Especially as the protective feeling she'd felt from him when he stopped Kakashi's kick and when he had held her bridal style resurfaced in the back of her mind. She instantly stomped that thought down. There was absolutely no way she was having any interest in Uzumaki Namikaze Menma. Besides, what would Ino think she couldn't do that to her oldest friend? She sneaked a peek at him, seeing the lively smile on his face. That was most certainly the most infectious thing in the world. Okay, maybe no. She wanted to pull her hair out at just the idea, let alone the internal battle these emotions brought up. Alright, well, if we're all done, let's head out, Naruto said, placing more than enough payment on the counter for all the group had eaten and drank. Thanks for the hospitality, Tuki Ayame-chan. See you next time. Quit leaving so much money, Gaki. Tuki raged as his favorite customers, namely the Uzumaki Namakazes, walked out of the stand. The old man only smiled, shaking his head as he pocketed the money. Ayame, remind me to talk to Nar about investing in the stand. Maybe then he'll feed him for free. I doubt that, Tu-chan. The girl giggled, knowing how her father would happily let that family eat for free if they'd let him. XXXX Ba-chan, I've got someone here I want you to meet. Naruto called into the home as he walked in, holding the door open for Mei, Menma, and Sakura. I'm drinking. You come to me. He heard the woman call back, making him chuckle and lead the way into the house. Sakura looked around in wonder as they walked from the ornate entranceway into a masterpiece of a living room lounge connected to a bar area and the kitchen proper. Then her eyes landed on the legendary medic herself. The woman clearly enjoying a bottle of sake with two others present. I want you to meet one of my students and Menma's teammate, Haruno Sakura. She's got interest in becoming a medical ninja. He smiled, seeing her sitting in the lounge with a saucer of sake, a napping Jero with his head on her lap and Shizune smiling at the group from a chair. So I guess you want to guilt trip me into training her then? Nay, Gaki, she asked with a raised brow, watching as Mei and he sat on the couch adjacent from her and Jiraiya. No, I won't guilt trip you, but I'll ask you to consider it. I think you'd be impressed with her control. He smiled, waving for Sakura to find a seat, as Menma did the same. She doesn't have much of a reserve, but she's got enough to work with in how I'm going to train their team. It won't be that way for long. Nade looked the girl over, noticing the nervousness radiating off her in droves, but she still tried to throw up a brave front, and that made the woman smile. She wasn't well built, most likely due to some stupid dieting routine that no ninja in her lifetime actually ever needed. But the slug princess could see an underlying formation of muscle there as well, uncommon for many civilian clan members her age. So, what makes you think I should train you? The Sannin blatantly asked, and Sakura was clearly caught off guard. Did this mean she was actually willing to train her? I'm obedient and will do whatever you deem necessary. Sununade-sama. I work hard and if you're willing to give me the chance, I'll show you. Picked up the determination coming to life in those green eyes. I'm also not the strongest, but if I can become your student, I'll be able to help Sasuke and Menma in a better way. Sunade hummed, dissecting the girl's answer in her mind. Giving your redeeming qualities and even your blaring weakness, you're very aware of your own shortcomings, and I can appreciate that. Should I agree to this, my first order will be you stopping any of those pointless diets you've put yourself through. You're going to need well-balanced and full meals if you want me to make you something. Next, you'll address me as Shisho. And lastly, you'll understand that when I say I'm going to work you into the ground, I mean it. You may even want to ask one of the Gakis to prepare a room for you to stay in here from time to time. The warning of how brutal any training the Sonin would give was clear as day to the girl. As the blonde-haired woman smirked at the renewal of the girl's nervousness, but it widened into a smile when the pinkett washed it off a moment later for a look of sure determination. I understand, Shisho. Smirked at the bowing pinkett. Maybe her grandson was right about this one. Good. Now, why don't you and Menma go run off and do something? He can give you the tour, she said, shooing the two away and taking the last chug of her sake. If I break her, don't blame me. It was said after the two genin were out of earshot, directed to a now chuckling Naruto. At least I know you'll put her back together, Ba-chan. Naruto smiled, and the woman rolled her eyes before looking to the Mizukage next to him, lounging back into his chest with her own saucer of sake. I suspect you two enjoyed your night last night. Mei nodded happily as she nuzzled herself further back into Naruto, earning a smile from the blonde as he gently kissed the side of her head. Good, but please make sure your shinobi know to clean up any mess they make on the grounds. The pervert slipped on a patch of ice this morning. Trust me, as funny as it was to me, I already have to heal the idiot more than enough. Mei giggled in response. I'll go speak with Zabuza-chan and Haku-kun about that immediately. I do have a meeting with the Hokage shortly, so I need to find them anyway, she said, standing up from her position with Naruto's hand in hers. I suppose you'll be heading towards the Uchiha compound before long. I may train Menma and Sakura for a couple hours before. He shrugged, smiling at her as she leaned down and kissed him. I'll see you tonight then. Tonight. Naruto smiled, watching very intently as she went on her way. You're drooling, A idly commented. Nar actually going to wipe his mouth, not catching his grandmother being sarcastic. Men, she rolled her eyes, casting a glance down at the still snoozing pervert, a loving glint in her honey brown eyes. I see that my little Otudo has gotten quite lucky in the relationship department, Shizune commented, making the blonde smile. I'll happily agree with you there, Shizune. Nay. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got 2 gakis to find. He smiled before getting up and going on his own way. It was at this moment chose to give a look of scrutiny to her eldest student. When are you going to try to go for a man? I'm stuck with the pervert. Don't you have anyone in mind? Shizune blushed brightly, waving her hands defensively. Sama, don't worry. I have someone in mind, she assured, only garnering a skeptical look from the legendary medic. If you say so, XXX, it's been some time since I've seen you drink, sensei. The blonde smiled, appearing on the back porch of the Uchiha clan's main house. Mikoto looked at him for only a moment before downing the saucer she had poured herself before placing it down beside her and pouring another for herself and one for him in the second waiting saucer. Well, it's been some time since you've come and seen me. This has become somewhat of a ritual of mine after dealing with a day's work, she calmly admitted, Naruto catching the wafting smell of alcohol on her breath thanks to his enhanced senses. A sign she'd been at it for a while. Looking forward to being a sensei on top of already being a clan head. Not entirely, but my clan, if you want to call it that at this stage, is quite small and yields much less paperwork than you'd imagine, he sighed, accepting the saucer from her and sipping it slowly. Most of my work comes from the network, and as much as RWGG complains about it, I have help there. She grunted in a fashion similar to her youngest son. Any news on my little problem? No, he's not resurfaced since that night. Begrudgingly, I must admit my surprise. He's been so capable of avoiding my network. The blonde sighed, even with some of the hardest to come by targets he set for his network, they always found something. But the man couldn't avoid him forever. But I suppose it has more to do with that masked bastard than his own skill. Do you think it's possible my husband is the reason that man was able to stage the attack way back then? I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think Fugaku didn't start any partnership with the unknown man until the effects of the attack had been taken out on the Uchiha clan. Mikoto sighed at this, her well-hidden sadness openly on display before her student. I should have fought his rise to the clan head harder all those years ago. Maybe I could have saved him from this path. She was trying to lay the blame at her own feet, and Naru glared at her for it. The path he chose was his own mistake, and you can't blame yourself for the mistakes of another, Mikoto sensei. He hated seeing her this way, but he knew the toll all of this had on her. Maybe you should take some time off and allow Itachi to take over for a bit. It sounds like you could use it. Mikoto laughed lightly at that, downing her saucer for the second time since his arrival. Itachi himself would say he's not ready for such a thing. Was I ready for that responsibility? To manage clan accounts and funding at the age I was elevated to clan head status to be responsible for my entire family and their well-being. Mikoto sighed at his harsh tone. She hadn't meant to hit a nerve like that. But she supposed he was matter about her not taking care of herself rather than calling Itachi's ability into question. I suppose you have a fair point. I guess I'm just reluctant to let even my son take the reins for the clan. I want to keep him from that same dark path. Naruto scoffed at that, doubting his own sake. Itachi would never betray the village. Even if forced to make it look that way by some insane plot, he'd still always hold this place first in his heart. That's because it was the way you showed him, he said with a hard gaze, begging her to see his side brought a pause to any form of rebuttal. If he ever did, it wouldn't be any fault of your own either. But I'd still make him regret that decision. The exact way I'll make Fugaku regret it with my own hands. His Manchukuo flared with his anger, causing a small smile to come to the woman's face. You're so much like her, it's uncanny. This admission of hers caused the blonde to pause, knowing exactly who she meant. There was only one person he missed so dearly that she would bring up in such a veiled way to disguise her own hurt. To think you had wondered at some point if they'd be proud of who you are, the morals you uphold, and the way you respond to the darkness of our world. Her smile became fond as she reflected on memories long buried. I still have my doubts. I've done many things that I know go against their way. He sounded somber at that. But now it was Mikoto's turn to scoff at him. Still an idiot deep down, my cute little Genin. Naruto glared at her in her mind cutely for the use of an old nickname. But it would seem the change of topic had gotten her from her momentary self-questioning and doubt. She took the moment to scoot closer to him, moving the sake bottle to her other side and rested her head against his broad shoulder. Nar felt his face heat at this, the woman having done things like this often in the past. You're a strong man, Naruto, and I must admit, I find myself jealous of the luck of the god Mizukage. Sensei. Naruto's blush deepened at her admission, watching as she poured them each another saucer all without moving from his side. Let a hurt woman have her musings. Naruto-kun, she smiled, seemingly to lean further into his natural warmth. The blonde sighed at that, not even able to fathom what exactly was happening at the moment, hardly wondering if it was just the sake talking or if Jiraiya's old wise tale of people speak their true heart when they were drunk had any weight to it. But there was no way this woman, his mother's best friend, his best friend's mother, and his sensei would have any feelings like that for him. It was beyond unfathomable to the blonde. He watched as she downed the sake a third time, following her example and doing the same with his. But as he titled it back and began to swallow the strong rice wine, he felt her move at his side. His blush only blossomed as he felt soft lips press against the tanned skin of his cheek. Mikoto sensei. He stumbled over the name, frozen to his spot. Just Mikoto is fine, Naruto-kun. He could hear the smile in her voice as she returned her head to his shoulder. It might be the sake, but I find myself wondering what it would be like to have you for myself sometimes. His eyes widened at what she'd said, but as he turned to ask if he heard her right, a gentle snore escaped her, and a small smile came to his face. I guess it was just the sake talking Mikoto sensei or the exhaustion, he said, setting the saucer down and picking her up into his arms. He easily carried her through what could have been his second home, heading towards her bedroom, idly wondering where Itachi and Sasaki were at the moment before shrugging the thought away. As he neared the room, he gingerly used his foot to open the sliding door and moved to place her on her bed. Standing above her, he took the moment to look over her peacefully snoozing face. He couldn't deny the fact that he'd known for very long just how beautiful she was and let another smile escape him. I'd be the lucky one, Mikoto, he whispered before disappearing with his horizon like he hadn't even been there. Naruto face palmed as Kakashi chuckled sheepishly, their genin squad blatantly glaring at the Hokage expectantly. It had been a month of the three brats doing nothing but simple D-rank missions and even the respectful Sakura had enough of it. The pinkett glaring at the grandfatherly Hokage right alongside her male teammates, the man only looking to Naruto and Kakashi with that amused smile of his. Why am I not surprised that it's the team belonging to you two that is always so lively? He chuckled, biting down on the end of his pipe. Well, what do you two think? Are they ready for a C-rank mission? Naruto and Kakashi exchanged a look before looking over their genin squad. Menma was still the tallest, his hair even more wild than Naruto's own. Standing there in a pair of simple black pants and orange long-sleeved shirt with the new Uzumaki clan symbol proudly on his back. Like his brother back at that age, his outfit was quite simple, even with the blaringly obnoxious orange shirt he wore. But unlike his brother at that age, he didn't sport a katana, instead having two Fuma shuriken across his lower back. They were partially hidden by his shirt and held there by a unique leather belt made by one of the fledgling clan's new businesses. Sasaki hadn't changed much physically, just grown stronger as a shinobi, going pace for pace with Menma. He still wore the same khaki pants and blue high-collared shirt he had in the academy, just now having a ninjutsu fastened to his back by a large leather chest piece similar to one Shiwi had worn with his katana. Sakura had probably had the most growth out of the three in the short month they had been a team, having been trained by Sununade every day following whatever the team did that day, be it training or missions. Most times the girl wouldn't stop until the sun was going down. It being customary for Sunade to begin drinking around that time. But alongside more toned muscles and an all-around better physique, her clothing had changed some too. Her blue-green skin-tight bike shorts had been replaced by a pair of black ones. Her sandals now a pair of Naya Kunoichi boots, and her red kepao dress was replaced with a sleeveless version with longer and thinner hanging cloths on front and back. Overall, while looking the same at first glance, most of the changes allowed her more free movement than the previous attire. Last but not least, she had stopped wearing her headband atop her head, now wearing it like most shinobi did, with her long hair kept in a high ponytail with two bangs framing her face. Kind of like Kusha's style, but more or less a bit spikier like the ponytail of her older canon self. Your call, you're the lead Junin. Naruto shrugged, earning a sigh from Kakashi, who nodded his agreement to the Hokage. Very well, I just had the perfect C rank come in for such a team. He smiled that grandfatherly way before nodding to Anan to bring the client in. It's a simple escort mission to Nami Nukuni for the bridge builder to Zuna. The only threat you should receive is possible bandits. An escort mission with my luck on those things. Nar deadpanned, earning a chuckle from the old monkey as he called him. I'm sure everything will go smoothly, Naruto have faith in your young students. The blonde sighed at that and nodded before the stench of stale alcohol filled the room so heavily even his nose turned up. Looking over his shoulder, he saw an older man, maybe a decade or two behind the Hokage in age, stumble in with a drunk red tint to his cheeks. You're giving me a bunch of BRZ for what I paid. He drunkenly slurred. And even Naruto turned a suspicious eye to him. The three genin directing glares of disgust at more than just the man's foul smell. Now three genin are more than capable of handling any possible bandit threat to Zuna-san. Unless there's something more about the mission you neglected to tell Hokage-sama. Naruto gave the man a calm smile. His smirking as he watched the blonde sink into his diplomatic training. The man nearly choked on the sake. He was still gulping at this point. Blatantly getting drunk in a business meeting such as this was something Nar even frowned upon. And no, I am sorry. It just took me by surprise once so young could handle a problem like mine. He seemed to sober up as he spoke to the blonde. Those strange mix-matched eyes giving him quite the blaring scrutiny. Then I suppose you'll have no problem meeting us at the eastern gate in the 20 minutes we'll all lot our students to go pack any necessary supplies. Kakashi smiled at their client, earning a quick nod from the man before exiting the room. You heard that, my cute little genin. Only the necessities and be quick about it, he ordered, now directing his eye smile to the kids before they left, and he finally looked solely to his blonde assistant sensei. Keep an eye on our client. I assume you already have everything needed in a sealing scroll as I taught you. Sure do. Glad I'm not the only one getting an odd feeling about this one. The blonde then looked over his shoulder to look at the old monkey. Expect my messenger wolf in the next 5 to 6 hours with new details on the mission if they arise. I won't ask for higher pay, but I will ask you to put a higher ranking on the mission and put it on the team's record. Very well, the agent Hokage nodded. I had my own suspicions about the man, but with you two on the mission, I doubt there will be too much to worry about on my end. So, you knew something was fishy and you still took the job. Nar raised a brow in mild surprise. Maybe Menma isn't far off saying, you've gone senile, miserable old monkey. The response to that was the mission scroll being thrown at his head with enough force to give any normal person a concussion. Nar, being far from normal, turned around with a crazed smile that actually had the Ambu in hiding apprehensive. You want to go, shitty old monkey. You're still 100 years too early to face me, dumbass Gaki, the man retorted calmly, exhaling a large cloud of smoke at the fuming Uzumaki clan head. Narutkin, the client, if you wouldn't mind, you and Hokage-sama can continue when we get back. Kakashi gave off his usual eye smile, even as he reprimanded his hostile ko-sensei. I'm coming for you, old monkey. Don't forget it, he said before disappearing in a lightning shinhan. Stupid Gakis. The old men chuckled, making Kakashi sweat drop before he too left. It wasn't often that Nar and the Hokage would do such things. But when they did it, it was quite the sight to be seen. XXX. It had been a couple hours into their trip. Nar bringing up the rear while Sasaki and Menma guarded a flank each, Kakashi in the lead, and Sakura closest to the client. It was around this time Nar took notice of a rather large puddle on a sunny path that probably hadn't seen rain in several weeks. Slowing his pace ever so slightly to be sure he would be the last and only person standing in the puddle. By the moment his first footfall hit the puddle, the client's last had just left it. A smirk came to his face before lightning surrounded his second foot and the blonde slammed it into the puddle, immediately charging electrifying currents throughout the water. The result was 2 blood-curdling screams and his team looking back at him with surprise. Well, aside from Kakashi, the puddle instantly dissipated, revealing 2 bodies face down and unconscious in it. The blonde instantly moving to slam his foot on one of their backs. Menma was quick to follow as he saw the second struggling to move, drawing both his Fuma shuriken before holding one like a sword to the man's neck. The man wearing a kiri headband with a slash through it only glared at the crimson-haired Yusuzuki Namikaze, his body still too charged with lightning to do anything. Well, then it would appear we've been targeted by missing Nin. Certainly something that was an occurrence the Hokage should have been informed possible, the blonde said calmly, stomping his foot on the man's back. Care to explain yourself to Zuna-san before I extract any incriminating information from these 2 idiots? All right, I'm sorry. The drunk immediately held his hands up at the unusually calm Shinobi. The truth that I didn't tell your Hogue is that my country, being no more than a cluster of islands at this stage, has been taken over by the overlord known as God. He harasses and demoralizes every citizen, his hordes of gangsters and thugs, terrorizing any stupid or brave enough to speak out. His 5 missing nin like those 2 are his executioners who kill any brave enough to try and go against him. The bridge I'm building is my way of going against him and will underscore the shipping monopoly he has over our land. The blonde released a heavy sigh as the civilian man finished. You're lucky I'm of the forgiving nature. Otherwise, I'd be turning my team around and leaving you to your fate. Nar allowed himself to glare at the man that could have endangered all of them. But that's not the way of the will of fire. And we'll continue this mission. However, I hope you understand you won't be getting this free of charge. Where is your daimyo in all of this? Assassinated by Kurosaki Ria, God's right-hand man, Suna said sadly, missing the flicker of anger that flashed through the blonde's dangerous eyes. So, I've finally found out where that worthless prick has been hiding all these years. A wolfish smirk that terrified Suna came to his face, his brother only looking on with worry. That will lessen the debt you will owe to me specifically. Lucky enough for you. But once God and his men are routed, the next daimyo named will be entering into a trade agreement with Konohagure to make up for your folly. We will also provide protection and set up an allied outpost in your land free of any native shinobi to prevent any future occurrences like this. I can't possibly agree to all of this. I'm no daimyo, Suna exasperatedly explained, only for the blonde to smirk, making several hand seals before slamming his hand on the man's back. Kuchio's no just you, he said with a shout before two small wolves appeared in a puff of smoke. Nar quickly kicked the man beneath his foot towards a tree, slamming his hands together when the man connected with it. Mokuton Yuaku En would release ensnaring roots. The thrown missing nin was immediately wrapped within roots holding him in place. Mokuton blonde hair. Why you're the SS Seno no Owami. The other brother stuttered, making the blonde smirk at the fear it brought the conscious brother. And no wonder our surprise tactic didn't work. You wouldn't have tricked a tunin with that pathetic attempt. I'm surprised the slaughter cage ever even promoted you worthless brothers to the rank. Naruto shook his head before pulling two scrolls, writing something in each and then sending the wolves in different direction at blinding speeds. You'll leave the politics of the matter to me, Tazuna-san. Your only focus will be first getting us into Nami no Kuni under the darkness of night and finishing that bridge. Naruto-sensei, where did you send the other wolf? Sakura asked, earning a smile from the young man. To the god I'm Mizukage, informing her I'll be collecting the bounty of 2, hopefully 3 of her missing nin, he said with a smile before patting her on the head. And don't worry, I'll be nice enough to split the profit with you. Nar then smirked as he walked to the missing nin held by his Mokuton, who was beginning to wake up. Now you and I are going to play a little game, Demon-chan. But his hand immediately stretched out, grabbing the man by his head roughly. I don't want to scare the children just yet. So, what would you say to a more private setting? He smiled before his eyes opened, revealing the frightening crimson shade of his mango. Tsukuyomi, he whispered. And it wasn't even a second before the man fell limp. You're getting better with that eye, Naruto, Kakashi admitted. What did he do, sensei? Sakura asked, but it was their Uchiha member who answered. Tsukuyomi is one of the hidden jutsu of my clan, only able to be used by a very rare few who unlock something called the Mangekyo sharing. It casts a genjutsu so strong on the target that it creates a full genjutsu world where days pass when in reality it only lasted seconds. Itachi can use it too. He just feels a lot more stress from it because of the taxing nature of the basic Mangekyo. Sasaki explained, a little known fact of his clan, but by no means a true secret. It also helped that he'd recently became more accepting of the pink-haired girl as she focused more and more on her training, mainly because she didn't bug him nearly as much. I just don't entirely understand how Naruto-sensei uses it like a natural-born Uchiha, or that he has more control with it than Nisama. Well, that's a two-part answer for later. Kakashi smiled before looking to Nar, seeing the angry expression on his face as he ended both men with a single flick of his kani, slashing the neck of the one in front of him and then throwing the blade to slash the other's neck without even looking. The chakra his body was exuding was ominous, promising pain, and it worried both the silver-haired Junin and Menma. What is it, Enshin? Menma asked, still wondering how his brother had even done that without looking. Everything is fine, Oto Naruto said, reining his raging chakra back. I want you to take up Kakashi's position. Sakura take his and Sasaki stay at your own. Kakashi and I need to talk for a moment. The way he said it made his surrogate brother worry that something else had been found out in his quick genjutsu-induced interrogation, and Naruto's eyes belayed no less to him. Hi sensei. The genin got to it as he asked. Kakashi and himself trailing behind the group, but not too far behind. What is it? Do you remember the report I shared with you not too long ago? The one about the missing nin of ours who stole Nadime-sama's sword and defected to a Megakure. How you have eyes in that lockdown country? I'll never understand. Answer the question, Kakashi. His voice didn't raise, but Kakashi knew this was no time to be getting off track with the blonde. Yes, Ruko Aoi, given the rank of Junin, for the strategic information he shared about our security. He's been sent here, the controlling organization of a Megakure, has a vested interest here, he revealed, earning a confused look from the man. Trust me, it's not good. We're talking possible S-rank missing nin intervention on top of Ria and Aoi. You're telling me that's what a Megakure has been up to all these years, recruiting S-rank missing nin? The blonde nodded gravely. I only know of 4 confirmed and none of them are good. His eyes hardened as he looked worriedly to his brothers back then to the other of their students. If I'm not just making bad connections here, you need to be ready to evacuate those 3 at first sign of those people. Best case scenario, we finish this before any of them catch wind of it. Hopefully, not even a blip on their radar. How did you learn this? Arozan says, I was born for this line of work. They wouldn't know it was my contact there, even if I blatantly told them. How Shu's gift was bigger for my cause than even he might have realized. He smiled, tapping just below his still act of sharing it. Let's get back in the original formation. I've got a bad feeling starting to arise. XXX. Nar glared at the new appearance, his brother, having been forced to tackle the client out of the way of a crackling bolt of lightning aimed directly at the man's head. How his brother was the first to notice or react was beyond him. But his brother had been full of surprises since he learned to walk. An insane laughter filled the air. One Naruto remembered far too well to ever forget or misplace. Fortune has smiled upon me once more. The one I wanted to give a funeral to the most has finally appeared before me. The blonde growled as he heard the voice of Kurosaki Ria reverberate through the rolling in mist. I'm glad you knew I've been hunting for you, bastard. You won't be slipping away this time either, Naruto responded, earning looks of worry from his traveling party. This is my fight, and you 4 will stay out of it. Especially you, Kakashi, Naruto ordered as it seemed a floodgate opened and his chakra became palpable. What a neat trick. You're far stronger than the last time we met, Gaki. I'm interested to see how much stronger. Ria laughed that insane laughter once more. I was strong enough to kill you the last time we met, bastard. This time, I'm going to slaughter you, sociopathic. I can hear your funeral bells ringing already. Seno no Okami, give me the dance I desire. With that, a bolt of lightning appeared within Naruto's hand to reveal his mother's prized katana. And a second later, he was staving off the animalistic charge of the Ka blade wielder. The genin were starstruck to see the way Naruto was moving, the way his opponent was seemingly matching him in Kenjutsu ability. This was the first time they would see what it was like for high-level ninja to face off. Nar was quick to parry a swipe with his mother's sword, quickly plunging his blade towards the man's chest, only for it to be blocked by the second Ka blade. Nar gritted his teeth as a second, much shorter blade appeared in his other hand, called forth from the ceiling array on his arm. It proved to put the former member of the legendary Swordsmen of the Mist on the back foot as the blonde's full style came to fruition. It was something Kakashi hadn't seen him do in all the time they had worked together, not once. But then, the copycat ninja saw glimpses of similar flips and strikes that had previously looked incomplete, come into play. Much more on display with a second blade, as if the blonde style was always meant for 2 blades and not a single. The blonde, finally gaining the higher ground, planted a kick on the swordsman's chest, sending him flying back with his chakra-enhanced strength. But Naruto wasn't done there as he held a ram seal with the hand holding his shorter blade. Kuriokur no Jutsu with that call. The mist seemed to thicken with the combined jutsu of both men, efficiently making it where no one could see a few feet before them. The secret to the fighting in the mist is learning to see without your eyes. And thanks to you, I have quite the experience in that. Now, it was the Konoha nin's voice that reverberated throughout the mist. And if any could see him, they'd find his eyes actually completely shut, his sensory ability all light. I'll do far worse than take your eye this time. Ria laughed, even as he coughed up some blood from that kick. Enough talk. I figured you to be more for action than words. Yaki, the small group of genin could hear blades clash against one another back and forth from the sound of it, neither side letting up. But it would seem Ria had enough of the back foot as an eruption of lightning filled the mist. Far less controlled than Naruto's own third affinity. But then that seemingly uncontrolled chakra tamed itself, forming a protective armor around the crazed man. Rejeki no Yoroi An. No, this is not the Rakuge's version. This is Ria's. Look it up. It happened. Nar gritted his teeth at the jutsu. It would make the fight harder, but far from impossible. Sento, he whispered, feeling the natural chakra of the land surge into his being, and the signs of his form stretched down his face. He then lifted his foot and stomped it. Senpo, Mokuton, Taju, Yuaku, Nan. Those same roots from before exploded from the ground, this time in numbers by the hundreds aimed towards Ria, and the blonde just kept sending them quiet dangerously within the mist. Thanks to his sensing prowess, Ria, however, only let loose more of that deranged laughter as he swung through root after root with his lightning-charged blade. Even his senjutsu-empowered roots wouldn't be enough to stop the man. Moku Bunshin, he entered. 2 clones of himself forming from the ground at his feet, even as he continued to control his original jutsu. Both clones charged into the mist, darting for the man that lit it up like a beacon in the night, knowing full well what their only goal was. Rhea, however, was unperturbed, swiping through the first, turning it into a husk of wood as the other flipped over him, blocking every strike with its replica blades. The crazed man only continued to laugh, enjoying this more than any fight he'd had in recent years. But his laughter ceased for a moment as his senses warned him of the impending danger. He quickly ducked as Naruto's blade came flying through the mist thrown like a kunai, or rather a spear. His eyes widened, however, when he noticed within the clone's hand a familiar swirling ball of chakra twice the size of his head. In nothing but a moment, he sidestepped it, finding it easy thanks to the advanced speed his armor gave him. But he was again caught by surprise as he noticed the sword from before was impaled in the clone. Had the blonde intended this? He blinked and learned that natural need was his undoing. As when his eyes opened, the original blonde was there. In his hand, an oddly different swirling ball of chakra that seemed to vibrate the air around it, filling the area with a high-pitched static. Resendori, all Rhea could do was stave off the impaling nature of the ball, focusing all of his armor's integrity into one spot. Instead of the technique going through his chest as previously planned by the blonde, it was as if he'd been flicked by a beiju, sending him flying through several trees before being embedded into a boulder. The attack broke the man's focus on upholding the mist. Nar releasing his own as he walked dangerously towards the man. But just as his team got sight of him, he vanished, reappearing right before the man with his fist already back. There was no chakra in it as the blonde punched him once, twice, thrice, turning the man's face into a bloody mess as he vented every single thing he hated this man for. The genin and Kakashi watched in stunned silence as Nar was beating the man who had taken his eye, countless allies, and his teammate from him to death with his bare hands. But just as Nar was going to deliver the blow, Kakashi was sure would cave Rhea's skull and a new person appeared. The young girl with blonde hair licked back atop her head, managing to kick the distracted Naruto away, entirely thanks to her strange speed, and rip the man from his confines before disappearing as quickly as she had appeared. God damn it, Nar roared, realizing what had just happened, his revenge being ripped from him. Nar, that's enough, Kakashi said. But his tone was careful and rightfully so as Nar turned his hateful glare on his older brother. But as he looked at the man and the fearful look on each genin's face, he stopped, releasing all of the emotions he had within him with a shaky breath. He'd still find that bastard Rhea and be the end of him. There was no sense in throwing a tantrum and freaking out his team. Hell, he couldn't even go after the brat who had taken him away with his sensory ability. He couldn't let himself go off without his team. Besides, unless that girl was either very quick or a medic, he'd bleed out for sure. The blonde just found himself wishing he had gotten a look at her or a feel for her chakra. I'm sorry. The blonde breathed again and they seemed to calm at that. Kakashi walking up to the boy and clapping his shoulder. He took a dear friend from you. I understand. Just not best to scare the client and our cute little genin. Kakashi eyes smiled then looked calculative. Can you still sense them? Nar closed his mind for a moment, focusing on the signatures he could feel before shaking his head. I could barely sense Rhea's chakra after I began beating his face in, but I never got a feel for hers and can't detect any foreign signatures even in my range. That means she's moving faster than a high Tunin level of speed, at least near mid-Junin to get out of your range that quickly, which means she just might be able to get that miserable bastard to healing in time. After all, Naruto punched his hand into the stone Rhea had been imprinted within. Just means you'll get another shot at him. For the sake of convenience and not scarring our students, maybe do it less personal than beating him to death with your bare hands. Nar rolled his eyes at the signature I smile sent his way. Of course, Kakashi would be the one to tell him to rein his anger in. The bastard was too lazy for anger. Sure thing, Kakani. Naruto sighed, watching as Kakashi ordered for the team and their client to get ready to move again. Remind me not to piss him off ever again. Please, he snorted at the client's request to Kakashi. Menma and Sasaki nodded heartily in agreement. Sakura looking between the blonde and Menma indiscernibly. Naruto had no idea what was on the girl's mind. And after today, he honestly couldn't care less. All he knew was his body ACHD. You guys ready? He called out already walking in the direction they had been going. XXXXX so since it seems we've got the time to train, I'm going to train you too and Kakashi Senpai will be training you Sasaki. Naruto smiled, directing the first part to Menma and Sakura. Sasaki shrugged, walking over towards the lazier of their teachers, who even seemed more motivated than usual. Okay, either of you know your elemental chakra yet? Both Gen and looked between themselves before shaking their head in the negative. Okay, well we're going to start there. Channel as much of your chakra as you can into these. The blonde directed, handing them each a slip of paper. Menma was the first to do it, jumping when his paper first split in half and then burned into ash. What does that mean? He asked, letting the ash fall from his hand. Naruto chuckled. That means you have two natures that I specialize in. Neither of Odo, a higher affinity for futon, and a secondary Kaden. But don't worry, I know some Kaden and futon techniques I can teach you. He smiled when his brother smiled widely at him. All right, your turn, Sakura, he said, waving her on. Sakura did as ordered, watching mystified as the paper burned at the edges before turning to dust. Looks like a nearly equal affinity for Kaden and Doden, he said with a shrug. So, what are your chakra affinities then, sensei? Sakura asked, making Naruto smirk. Well, I have a very rare Naruto Mokuton which in theory comes from natural abilities with Suiden and Doden. But of the basic, my strongest affinity is Suiden, followed by Doden and lastly Raiden. It's unheard of for many ninjas to have three affinities like I do, but they can all be developed to an extent with enough training. However, having even two is very rare. It would seem this team is bounding with potential. Menma and Sakura shared a smile at that. It would seem Kakashi would be giving Sasuke very similar training to their own. Now, while I'm going to get you guys started on this, there is one more thing that I'd like for you both to work on in your free time. What is it? Sensei, Sakura asked, raising a trimmed brow in confusion. Her answer was a smile from Naruto as he called forth a spinning ball of chakra, the Rinnegan, created by Mayan Menma's Tu-chan, the Yandaime. Menma looked on in awe, having always wanted to learn this technique of his father's. Sakura, however, looked apprehensive. Naruto-sensei. Isn't that considered a clan technique now? It was never meant to be. Naruto chuckled, letting the ball of chakra dissipate as two water balloons appeared from his ceiling matrix. Tu-chan taught this technique to those he deemed worthy, like Kakashi Senpai and Jiraiya Jiggy. I even heard he taught it to Ka-chan, or was trying to. But in short, I deem both of you worthy to learn this technique. Menma by birthright and Sakura because of the hard work you've been putting in. What about Tam? Menma wondered. Not that he really wanted Sasuke to learn it. Kakashi wants to teach him the Chidori. Maybe someday I will show him these steps, but that will be long after you two begin them. You're acting as if this will take us a long time to learn. Sakura raised a brow at that. And Naruto chuckled. It took me 2.5 weeks to learn it. Kakashi a month, Jiraiya a year and Tu-chan 2 years to create it. Unless you two work day in and out, I doubt you'll learn it as fast as I did. It's going to be taxing on your control, Menma. And on your reserve, Sakura, there's a reason it's an A- rank technique. Menma only seemed to drool at the gauntlet basically chucked at his head by his brother. Sakura also seeming quite determined. I'm going to master it in a week, Dad. Oh Shara, I'll believe it when I see it. Now, let's begin on some elemental manipulation training. Sakura watched in as 20 perfect clones of Menma worked with the second step of creating the Rasengan power as the eldest brother had described. Each clone pushing their chakra into a rubber ball in an attempt to rupture and completely destroy it. However, what truly put awe into her was the 20 other clones focused on elemental manipulation practices. Half of them attempting the futon process by slicing a leaf perfectly in half. The other 10 working on Kaden by trying to control the flames ignited on a leaf to only burn in the center of the leaf and not overcome it and devour it. She had always assumed the crimson-haired boy trained like an animal, but a total of 41 of himself training to attain something was just unfathomable to her a month ago. Thanks to her smaller reserves and higher control, she had already gotten the manipulation process for Dodenjutsu down and finished the first step of the Rasengan. But the second step was proving to be difficult thanks to the former reason of her success with the first. This is where Naruto had known she would struggle and had begun instructing her to use nearly all of her reserves multiple times in a single day to help them grow higher quicker than they usually would. Honestly, if not for the intervention of Naruto or really Menma early on, she doubted that she would be so far this early on in her career as a genin. Thanks to Sununade's training methods, she wasn't necessarily forced to the backline by the medic's code, being proficient enough in her taijutsu to actually take on more of a combative support role in the team dynamic. But Nar held nothing back in letting her know it would be a long time before she could really stand shoulder to shoulder with her two teammates. Looks like Menma is working hard as ever. You about ready for another lesson with Doden Jutsu? Her sensei's voice broke her from the reaver for her crimson-haired teammate, earning a confident smirk from the girl. Hi, Naruto-sensei. XXX. Kakashi looked from the Uchiha to the gaping hole in the tree before them. Looks like you're only at a one-time use for now, but I'm sure we'll get you to at least 2 within the coming months. He sounded proud of the boy's progress. Maybe for now we'll focus on other Raiden techniques that will help you with controlling the element in the future. It is a fairly new thing for you. Sasaki panted heavily, nodding his head in acceptance to his sensei's words. It was only the third day into their training, and on the second Menma had bragged about completing the first step of the Rengen. Now, he could brag to his rival that he could already use the Chidori, even if it was only once a day. Perhaps we should take a short break for you to recover some. You have the best ratio of control to reserves, but your reserves aren't anywhere close to Menma. It's only natural that you'll need a break after using such taxing techniques, the silver-haired Junin explained, and Sasuke promptly fell to a sitting position. Sakura has already mastered one of 3 Doden Jutsu Naruto plans to teach her this week. Menma is nearing a breakthrough with his elemental manipulation and almost at the end of the second step to the Rinnegan. Kakashi revealing that last bit had the desired effect. Even though he held a haggarded look, the Uchiha gained another of pure determination. I'll get to 2 uses and master the other Raiden Jutsu you plan to teach me. I won't fall behind. The Junin smiled as his student forced himself to his feet, impressed by the dynamic of the team that drove each of these genin to strive for more than they could. XXX I don't understand why you idiots won't just go away. Godto will kill you all for what you're trying to do. A little boy with black hair glared at the 3 genin before him. The bridge builder's grandson, Inari Menma, had enough as he slammed his hand to the table. All you've done for the past 2 days is complain, cry, and tell us how stupid we are. But if we don't stand up to the bastard, who will? Tsunami, the boy's mother, was surprised by the outburst, to say the least. But she couldn't say her son hadn't earned as much. These kids and their sensei were putting a lot on the line for their village and country, not even really knowing them. All her son did to thank them was tell them how stupid the idea of facing God and his men was. Albeit, the boy did have good reason for his tunnel vision views on the matter. Not knowing what ninja could do and having watched his stepfather murdered in a public display. The woman's eyes saddened at the memory, watching as her son stormed off and up the stairs, hearing his bedroom door slam with a bang. Please forgive my Sochi. He's seen quite a bit someone his age shouldn't need to. Menma seemed to calm at the reveal before she went on to explain how the boy had watched his stepfather die. The first man to ever give their village any hope in the dark times they were in. Crucified to a post and beaten to near death before Ria cut him down. It took a toll on him seeing his hero hurt and killed in such a way, even hating that the man died with a smile on his face. Dying for the beliefs he held, even at the end believing we as a village could rise above God and his men. Menma, having heard the story, stormed off on his own, exiting the home after saying he was going to train more. Naruto watched him go, putting his hand up to stop Sasuke and Sakura from going after him. Let him be, Menma gets like this when he believes he has a personal stake to prove. I'm sorry for his outburst, Tsunami-san, and thank you for being so understanding of his side. Naruto sighed for a moment, releasing a weight he didn't realize was on him. Menma never met our parents, but grew up hearing stories about their heroism and beliefs. They were a lot like your late husband in some ways. He'll most likely be out there until morning training to prove to Inari that the future is what you make it, not what people think it should be. In short, one of his beliefs is there is always hope for any and all who have the heart to grab it. Menma, is that really how you think? Sakura questioned herself, looking to where the boy had just exited the house. He's quite mature for his age. Tsunami smiled and Nar allowed himself to snort at the claim. His beliefs may be, but my Otudo still has a way to go to attain maturity. He laughed, earning a smile from the woman. I hope he proves my son wrong and gives my Inari some faith in this world again. If anyone can, it's the Medichigardese Namba no Dabatata ninja, Sasaki smirked, using the nickname many of the older generation had been choosing to call his rival. Certainly a fitting name if Nar had ever heard one for his brother, though it sounded like a technique name his father would chose. Long, drawn out, and unnecessarily descript. Shouldn't one of you go and keep an eye on him to make sure he doesn't do anything unnecessary? Nar raised a brow at his and Kakashi's pink-haired student, said silver-haired Jun, even mildly curious about the newfound concern she displayed for him. Don't worry, Pinky. If he gets into any trouble, he's got my seal on his Fuma Shuriken. Sakura immediately glared at the nickname he had so dutifully been using recently. Besides, Kakashi spoke up, sharing a bottle of sake with their client. You and Sasaki will need to rest up. You'll both be on guard duty tomorrow to take a break from your training. Sakura, you'll be with Kakashi and I at the bridge. The blonde smirked, then pointed to the Uchiha. You'll be guarding the house with Menma's help when he returns tomorrow morning. Both nodded before taking their leave, doing as told, and getting some much-needed rest. Neither had the stamina Menma or Naruto were known for. Now, if you don't mind, Tuzuna-san, I could use a drink, Naruto sighed heavily. The tuna, drunkenly laughed, happily pouring a saucer for the young man. Be careful, kid. It's the rare stuff saved from Uzu Shioker long ago. Nar raised a brow at that. He hadn't known his family produced their own sake from the island. Interesting. Tell me, is there any here still willing to make that sale? XXXXX. Menma snored lightly, collapsed in the center of a clearing with his shirt long forgotten, dirt, scuffs, and burns littering his frame, even as they seemingly healed of their own vision. The crimson-haired genin was unaware of the blue eyes watching him, uncaring as the owner of those eyes neared him. The young girl, roughly around his age, with short, straight blonde hair combed back over her head, kneeled beside him. Gingerly, she reached her hand out to check his pulse, idly noting the Konohagger headband around his head. However, her eyes nearly bulged from her head, as before she could even touch him, violet orbs shot open. In less than the blink of an eye, she was held in an arm bar with his legs keeping the appendage in place as he wrenched it slightly. Who are you? His voice was surprisingly threatening yet chillingly calm. I'm not your enemy. I was just making sure you were alive, damn it. Her response, though yelled at him, seemed to plate him as he released her and gave a short berth between them. She noticed he stayed in close enough range to strike, but also just far enough to give him efficient time to counter should she attack. I'm sorry, Enshin always tells me you can't be too careful. He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly, surprising her at how quick his attitude had changed to be of a positive light. What are you even doing out here, sleeping in the middle of the forest? It sounded as if she was berating his stupidity, and all he did was chuckle. Was this kid an idiot, or was he just that confident in his abilities? I kind of trained all night and just passed out this morning. Who are you anyway? What are you doing all the way out here? I'm grabbing herbs. My father was injured and needs them for the pain that comes with quick healing methods. She sighed, moving to pick up the herbs that were around him, which had initially brought her here. Menma took the time to look her appearance over, noting that she was mildly attractive in a red sleeveless dress with a short skirt, leggings that stopped just below the skirt and wrist wrappings. Other than that, she seemed free of any distinguishing attire that could tell him where she was from. My name is Bunton, and in case you didn't know, it's rude to ask someone their name without first giving yours. The boy blushed embarrassedly. Sorry, Ba-chan hasn't had much luck with me and the whole manners thing. I'm Uezumaki Namikaze Menma. He seemed proud to say his name. Whether it carried weight or he just took pride in his family, she didn't know. Do you need any help? I don't know a lot about herbs, but I do know some. Bunton looked at him surprised before nodding her head shortly with a meek thanks in response, returning to her work only for him to speak up as her hand grabbed a stem. Careful, only get the ones in bloom of that. If they're not like that one isn't, they could be poisonous again. Surprise shone in her blue eyes, giving him a look of scrutiny. You know more than some, it would seem. Tell me, what is a shinobi of Konohagger doing in Nami Nuni? He went to ask her how she knew where he was from before realizing he was indeed wearing the village symbol on his head. A mission to help the town. You seem to know something about shinobi. Some things, yes, but not entirely a lot. I've spent most of my life traveling with my father from place to place, especially in recent years. The boy accepted the answer. And for the life of her, she didn't know why she cared. She knew exactly who this boy was, exactly who his brother was, as did her father. But maybe it was the stories she had heard about the boy's brother, not the ones from her father, but others who spread rumors of heroism. Maybe it was the reason she even spoke to him, gave him the time of day, or asked her next question. So, what does a shinobi like yourself fight for? You must have someone special or a dream, maybe. Menma smiled brightly at that, and Bunton had to admit it was like the warmth of the sun was hitting her directly. I fight for my brother's dream of peace, my precious people, and to become Hokage someday. Bunton seemed to smile at his enthusiasm. Those are quite big dreams you and your brother have. Is he the precious person you speak of? Well, when I was younger, I only really had him and a few others, but as I've gotten older, I've got a lot of people I want to protect. It makes me stronger. Her eyes, for a reason unknown to the Uzumaki, seemed to sadden. My father doesn't really believe in things like that. He tells me people are powerful simply because they can be, and they take the opportunity. Menma scrunched his nose up at the idea. I mean, maybe you can get some strength with a belief like that, but real power comes from fighting and training for the ones you hold close to your heart. For emphasis, he pointed to where the organ was in her chest. She seemed to reflect on those words, turning her blue eyes to the sky for a moment. I don't really have anyone to consider precious, I suppose. My father isn't a good man as much as I love him, and he's all I really have. Menma frowned at her words, preparing to say something until she abruptly stood and offered him a weak smile. It was nice talking to you, Menma. I should get home. Yeah, nice to meet you, Bunton-chan. He watched her as she walked away calmly, as if a tough subject had not been discussed by them. Why does she seem so familiar? Like I've seen her before. XXX Menma growled as he glared at the now empty balloon in his palm. Clones all around him in similar states. His brother was up in the tree above, reading a familiar orange book with a lazy look on his face as he felt for the chakra his brother was exuding with practiced ease. Too much, he muttered, hearing another pop from a balloon within the clearing. To be fair, his brother had technically completed this step not long ago, albeit with the assistance of a clone to spin the chakra as the original molded it. Naruto had immediately forbidden him from doing it that way in combat, saying how it left along an opening, showing for emphasis that he could summon the same sphere in the blink of an eye. Then went on to state that it took from the true purpose of the Rinnegan to learn the next level of control with one's chakra. The blue sphere had been the reason Naruto had mastered his own chakra control before sealing the Sanbi within himself. Not that his brother knew anything of that. This was why he had chosen to begin teaching Menma how to do it. If he could master this, the boy would be above most any genin combining it with his reserves and the Hachidori can. Naruto's eyebrows raised momentarily, sensing that his brother had nearly had this process of the technique before a much louder pop filled his ears. Sighing, he slipped the book back in his best to return to Kakashi. You keep it at Otudo. I'll check back at the end of the day. Don't forget tomorrow is the end of the week you claimed you would master it in. He immediately felt the determination burning off his brother's form. It was lovely being the older brother who knew exactly what and when to say to get that extra push. With that, the blonde vanished in a horizon, reappearing in the same instance next to a surprised Sakura, both standing on the bridge. And how have you been doing on your side training while on guard duty, Pinky? Are you ever going to stop calling me that? And how did you even get here? Sakura glared at him, however meekly, as she squeezed the rubber ball in her iron-like grasp, clearly annoyed with her youngest sensei. Probably not, he answered the first part with a whimsical shrug. You probably didn't notice before, but I placed one of my markers on you so I could sense any differences in your chakra signifying possible danger and used the horizon to give you back up. Sakura shrugged, thankful the blonde was so thoughtful of his students' well-being, especially on a mission none of them were particularly ready for. I'm still struggling with the chakra output. It drains me pretty bad to even get the surface of the ball moving from within. She frowned, only for him to reach over and pat her head. Don't worry about it, kid. You've got time to learn it. Menma was the only one foolhardy enough to say he could do it in a week. Though, to be fair, he still just might. He chuckled with a shake of his head. How have things been here? Quiet. Kakashi-sensei has been napping for the last hour or so, she said, glaring at the man who refused to give her any pointers on a technique she knew he knew. Resting my eyes. I haven't been able to sleep with all the cursing you've done at that poor defenseless ball. The silver-haired Junin Saidate, sitting up to look at his company captain. How are things with Menma and Sasaki? My clone is still with Sasaki. So, since he's not dispersed, everything should be just peachy. And Menma is fine, just focusing even harder on his training with the Rasengan. He got down the basics of both elemental manipulation techniques and then immediately dove straight into perfecting the Rinnegan. How close? To be fair, he had it with the help of a clone, but I told him he needed to master it without one and forbid him from using it until he had. Sounds like what Jiraiya-sama went through with you when he taught you. Kakashi chuckled at that, making the blonde shoe to look his way. Why do you think it took me 2 whole weeks to finish it? Fair enough. XXXX. Naruto glared into the mist, forming from nothing as it rolled towards them. Menma is on his way. The bandits sent to the house were killed. And our company has finally shown, he said, earning a sigh from his company captain. They waited this long. Couldn't they have given me a couple more minutes to finish the chapter? The perverted Jun wed, making to lift his headband. You've read that entire book 3 times since we've been here. Eros sensei. Sakura glared, even as she sweated slightly about what was to come from this probably the nicest thing anyone has ever called me. Thank you Sakura. Kakashi smiled before turning forward with any playfulness leaving him. You're in charge of guarding Suna-sanas. I want you holding Ria's savior back until Menma gets here to back you up. Both Jenna nodded preparing themselves as the Pinkett drew a kunai and Sasaki sunk into his taijutsu style. Kakashi then glanced out of the corner of his eye to look at the blonde. You know who you're up against. Don't lose your cool this time. The blonde nodded, albeit begrudgingly, but he supposed it was for the best that he didn't. He was the first to move, jumping forward as he summoned his blades in twin bolts of lightning before a metal clang reverberated throughout the mist. Shortly followed by a manic laugh that they all knew well now. I see you've recovered to full health, TM. Naruto growled, both immediately channeling Raiden chakra to lace their blades in. It would seem the two were going to go full out from the go as they began to slash at one another and parry each strike sent their way. Before long, the two had found the water's surface, leaving Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasaki to stare at the two who appeared before them. The man with green hair and purple eyes that Kakashi recognized as Rokusho always sauntered out with an air of confidence, igniting the rage and Noken as arcs of electricity crackled in the air around him. How do you think you'll fare against the raw Noken? Sharing no Kakashi. Considering you couldn't know the jutsu that the Nadaime used to make that blade truly famous, I think you'll be just fine, he said evenly, actually glaring at the man with a small amount of hate. Sakura Sasaki, you'll be handling the girl. I'll leave some clones with Suna-san as he said that two copies of himself burst into existence. All three already revealing their sharing. I want you both to pay attention to my words because for all I can teach you, these words are the things I hope you reflect upon and hold dear your entire life. Those who forsake their mission are trash. Those who abandon their village and more importantly their friends will always be worse than trash. His eyes hardened as the sound of 1,000 birds erupted within their eardrums. This what I'm going to do to the traitor of our village is the cost of becoming worse than trash. He roared, charging towards the man with lightning chakra crackling in each hand, any of his habitual laziness long gone. Well, the blonde-haired girl said, her tone trained to show no emotion or feeling. I suppose that just leaves us three before quite literally blurring from her spot, only to reappear right in front of Sasaki with a fist reeled back. The Uchiha couldn't even dodge as the fist hit his jaw and then a kick sent him careening down the bridge. Shit, you're fast, he grunted, righting himself, even on shaky feet. That kick, due to its speed, had knocked the wind from his lungs. Sakura, stay alert, he warned, his black eyes glaring straight at the blue of the girl his own age. Even being alert will not help your situation. I'm sorry, the blonde calmly said, sinking into a taijutsu stance. I won't let you win. That bastard Menma would never let me hear the end of it if you beat me now. The Uchiha shot back, moving to the front before falling into his own taijutsu stance. The girl scoffed. You won't even see my victory coming thanks to my gentle swift release before she blurred from another breakneck explosion of speed. However, this time when she appeared, her first strike was blocked. The black-haired boy immediately responding with a quick strike of his own, followed by another and a third. But as he went for a haymaker that surely would have had enough power to rock his enemy, the girl's leg blurred before another kick landed against the boy's head. This time again, her kick sent him careening to the side. Only this time, he was much quicker to his feet. His hands had already formed several seals during his impromptu flight, his index and thumb coming to his lips in a pinch-like gesture. Kaden, Gyaku, no just you. What followed was a massive fireball leading from his mouth and barreling straight for her. But the girl only smirked before once again vanishing in a blur of speed, getting around the impressive Kaden jutsu. This time, however, after she delivered a debilitating kick to the black-haired boy that sent him flying, her attention turned elsewhere. Sakura knew it was only a matter of time before their opponent came for her. The last line between their client and the battling. However, a smirk came to her face when she made a few hand seals. Doden Iwa no Yoroi before armor born of the cement bridge around her quickly protected her. Her arms held in an X formation to preemptively prepare herself for the axe kick the girl aimed at her. Her green eyes narrowed at the force she had to still exert to block the attack until finally she pushed the girl back. But Sakura wasn't done yet as she slammed her fist into the ground below them. Earthen spikes being forced up from the sheer power of her strike, thanks to a combination of the jutsu Naruto had taught her and the mastery of her chakra had taught her to hone. The blonde-haired girl only smirked, flipping back several times before in passing, delivering several kicks to Sasaki that once more sent him flying. As her first foot landed on the bridge, she vanished in yet another burst of speed. This time, Sakura not able to prepare herself to block as a solid hook hit her jaw before a flying knee sent her mind reeling and a quick repetition of two kicks sent her physical body flying back. But just as she would have slammed into the hard ground, she felt someone catch her. Looking up, she found herself staring into the worried violet eyes of Menma. However, her mint green eyes widened, catching as those violet flashed crimson even darker in shade than his hair. I won't forgive you for hurting Sakura-chan. He growled before finally looking at who had attacked the girl. Bunton-chan, what are you do? He stopped as things began to click and he sat Sakura down, his anger returning tenfold. I see. And once again, his eyes burned crimson, slitting in a vulpine way as he glared at the girl. Forgive me, Menyun. You were very kind to me, but I can't go against Tusama, she said, showing some regret as she stared into the hateful eyes. Is he now possessed? I take it judging by your headband then that your family name is Kurosaki. He sighed then turned to Sasuke. You still in the fight, TM. I'm fine. Took you long enough to get here. He panted, Menma immediately returning his gaze to the girl. I'm sorry, but if you support the man who took someone precious from me, I won't hold back, he growled, falling into a very unorthodox taijutsu stance. But her eyes widened as he disappeared in a shunt. When he reappeared, a kick already connecting to her jaw sending her airborne. You. He growled, those violet eyes not disappearing as a plume of smoke filled the air below her. She cringed as the flying knee connected to her back with a cry of zoo. Her eyes opened long enough to witness as two more clones appeared behind her. Maki, they had cried as two elbow strikes connected to her spine. But her eyes widened fully when she felt the air above her shift from another Shan usage. Rendon the original roared, delivering a spinning axe kick that sent her soaring into the bridge, bouncing off the cement sickly. Thankfully, she was able to open her eyes and channel her Genten technique to force her body to move as the crimson-haired boy came soaring her way with a ball of pure chakra spinning in his hand. Rasengan looking back after she had managed to get away. Her eyes widened at the crater where she had once laid. The crimson-haired boy smirked. Naruto Ni-chan is going to have to eat his words. I told him I'd master it in a week. He smirked at the widened look she gave him. How does a genin know such a powerful move? She wondered, watching as his smirk widened. Team 7 isn't your average genin team, Bunton-chan. We've been trained by two of the best. His roar was all the warning she got as he charged forward. She felt it far too late as a kick connected to the back of her head, having completely forgotten about the Uchiha before a sliding close line enhanced by a shunshin speed buckled her knees, sending her spinning from head to toe. He's mimicking my Gint with his shunshin. And it seems the has gotten faster. But how? She thought before her body slammed to the ground thanks to gravity move. Her senses screamed at her as twin axe kicks came from the boys aimed at her midsection. If not for her swift release, that would have done some real damage to her had those kicks connected. Looking up with a glare, her eyes narrowed, noticing a premature sharing now spinning in Sasake's eyes. So he can see my movements to an extent thanks to those strange eyes of his, she thought, gripping her stomach. Menma pulled his Fuma Shurikuriken from their sheaths, extending one and holding the other as a sword of sorts. Give up, Bunton-chan. We're too strong for you together, he seemed to urge her, only for a frown to mar her face. I honestly have no desire to fight you or even kill that man. But I can't go against my two-sama, her words shone with determination, glaring at him as he tried to reason with her. You're not like him. Why fight for his ways? You showed me you're not the crazed psycho he is. The crimson-haired boy yelled at her before a smile came to her face. Because in this cruel world, two-sama is all I truly will ever have, and I can't turn my back on him, she said, retaking her taijutsu stance before Menma seemed to fall into a kenjutsu stance. As your friend, I'm going to redeem you and save you from this stupid way of thinking. She smiled, wondering why this boy would consider her a friend after one meeting and be willing to go so far. But it seemed his compatriot shared that sentiment. The black-haired boy sharing a nod with his partner as she watched the pink-haired girl smile at them from behind. But Bunton's head snapped to the battle between her father and the eldest Uzumaki. Menma now looking too as everyone felt his brother's chakra explode. That familiar sound of an electric static so pure it vibrated the air itself shook them before Menma's eyes widened. As Bunton vanished in a burst of speed, the crimson-haired boy watched as she appeared before Ria with her arms spread in a martyr fashion, his brother seeming to slow his charge down, if only a little. Thinking quickly, he lobbed his Fuma Shuriken with all the might and strength he could muster. The blade expertly thrown to where it would appear behind Ria. Ni-chan, Horizon, Menma bellowed, Naruto catching on in a split second to what he meant as he saw the marked Fuma and then vanished from in front of the father-daughter pair. When the blonde reappeared, in the same instance he had vanished, catching his brother's Fuma and with a cry of Raiden Rendori, he plunged the violently spinning ball of lightning through the man's spine. Damn it, Ria coughed, looking down to see the jutsu coming to an end before it could reach his daughter. Bunton forgive me for my was. The blood escaped from his coughs as the girl fell to her knees on the water and cradled him to her body. Oh oi Gaki, he struggled to talk, most of his battle craze seemingly gone as he looked to the blonde. Tell my daughter of wh what I really am and get her back to Kikuriker. Naruto frowned at him in these moments, not seeing the sociopath who had taken his eye or killed his friend. But a man worried for his daughter's sake and nothing more. If it's worth anything, I'm sorry about your friend. Here, he struggled to hand the Ka blades to the blonde who was shell-shocked now at the apology. I won't need them whom I'm going. He coughed more blood before the light faded from his eyes completely. The girl Bunton wept the tears of a broken daughter as Nar sealed the blades into the containment seal on his forearm. Nar, giving her a look of indifference, even if he knew the shoes her feet now rested in at that moment. For a moment, that night from 13 years ago, flashed into his mind, his 6-year-old self holding a dead and gone Minato as he wailed to the heavens above. It was the first thing in 19 years of life, 7 of which spent as a shinobi, that he truly was faced with what he hated the most, breaking a family. He watched with unknowingly sad eyes as Menma landed behind the girl, taking the enemy shinobi away from the now floating body before hugging her to his chest. It was odd for the blonde to see such a scene on what he considered a battlefield. But it was the unpredictable type of thing his brother was becoming so well known for as the girl cried into his chest. Nar did as he had promised, sealing the body of his sworn enemy into a containment scroll meant for bounties, feeling guilt in his chest as he looked to the crying girl. But he was broken from these feelings when Kakashi appeared. Blood splashed across his face, not his own, tossing the blonde another recovered weapon and a sealing scroll. Looks like this is a mission finished, Kakashi sighed, covering his sharing before Naruto shook his head in the negative. No, we still have to remove God. And it would seem he's come to us with an army of bandits, Naruto said, glaring as he witnessed the boat pulling towards the end of the incomplete bridge. It was at this time Bunton seemed to stop her tears as a growl escaped her lips and Naruto could feel her anger. What are you doing? I won't blame you for this. Sama often said he only lived to fight you again one day, even if he lost. The blonde-haired girl growled, giving him an unexpectedly understanding look. But that doesn't mean I can't cut the head off the snake who supported his darkness and used him. Nar nodded at the answer, unsealing one of the Ka blades and offering it to her, only for her to shake her head. You're the only opponent Sama recognized, the only one he'd want his swords to pass on to. I'll honor Sama's wishes, he shrugged before resealing the blade. Menma, Sasaki, Sakura, back her up. I've had enough killing for one day, Nar ordered after the small group jumped back onto the bridge. The blonde sitting down with a sigh. No Nar versus bandits this time around. I'll be more than happy to help the kids this time. Kakashi eyes smiled, watching as Menma summoned an army of clones. The result of his action was to end any attempted monologue of the short man that was Godto, as the man was now too busy telling his subordinates to stand their ground as they attempted to flee by swimming away. Not every day someone faced an army of clones. It didn't last long at all. Gnarly getting involved after a bandit had actually been stupid enough to shoot a crossbow bolt at his head, which was deftly caught and thrown back like a dart. Not long after the massacre of bandits and the civilians of the town had shown up armed with various household items did another group of shinobi appear. You late Zabuza-sensei Naruto chided still sitting in the same position he had been as the people celebrated around them. Sorry Gaki took us a little longer to get here. New whirlpools have opened up and are making it difficult to sail this way. The swordsman sighed, standing calmly next to the young blonde, his students Haku and Chojuro just behind him. I take it you did indeed kill Ria. Sure did. Here's the scroll containing his body, the blonde said as the bandaged swordsman handed him another scroll. There's the payment and May-sama added a note for you instructing me to tell you to keep the Ka blades. Another sign of our ties to Konoha and more specifically your clan. Naruto could tell his bandages hid a smirk. How did your shinobi council take the news of the god I'm giving her lover one of your legendary swords? Naruto raised a brow, bringing a chuckle from the man. They made to fight it at first, or rather a few did, but most were all for it. The others agreed when their Junin commander spoke his agreement, saying there would not be a better swordsman to wield those blades outside of our own village. Zabuza smiled, patting the kid on his head like he had when he was still taller than him. Nar smiled at that. Thanks, Zabuza-sensei. Don't mention it, kid. We owe you more than we could ever give you for your help back then, he smirked, watching as the blonde's young team celebrated with those they had saved. That brother of yours is going to grow up to be just like you. I presume. Maybe he'll probably be stronger than I could ever be with time. The blonde smiled before turning his gaze to the blonde-haired girl standing just away from the celebrations. I've got something else for you to do while you're here with us, Kurosaki. Button will be returning with you. The last mercy I'm requesting on behalf of Kurosaki Ria's dying wish. Zabuza looked at the girl quizzically for a moment. I wasn't aware Ria had any family, but my Genin team does indeed need a third. Looks like she'd make a good pick for the next generation of the Seven. Nar nodded at that. Her bloodline limit would be helpful to any future as a swordless woman, and she may just have been the reason Ria stayed loyal to the slaughter cage. The blonde sighed, trying to voice some of the thoughts surging through his head. A daughter having been the only in the sociopathic armor Ria brandished right up until he spoke his final words. It could have been an ulterior motive as a means to hide the girl from the Yandami. But we both know Ria did indeed enjoy his work. Zabuza glared at the memories of the early years of the purge. Don't let the death of that bastard weigh on you, Gaki. I can already tell you are because of the girl. She'll have much more care in the new era of Kuriger. May even find some precious people of her own. Then he noticed that familiar crimson-haired boy walking up to her nervously, sheepishly rubbing his head as a weak blush came to her face. However, maybe she's already found her first. Yumaki boys must have a thing for the women of Kuriger. The men shared a laugh at the notion, Naruto smiling as he watched his brother cheer the heartbroken girl up. I suppose I'll be seeing you at the Tunin exams coming up soon. What do you guys think? Chojuro. Haku smiled calmly yet confidently while Chojuro seemed entirely nervous at the notion. I'll take that as one yes and a maybe. Naruto chuckled before standing to his full height, just an inch or so shorter than Zabuza. Give it some time and then you guys can head out with Bunton. I'll have Sandame-sama send another scroll with the details of our future joint outpost here in the coming weeks before the exams. Zabuza nodded, bumping the blonde's fist before walking towards the gravity-daying silver hair he spotted not long ago. Haku and Chojo moving to meet with the younger generation. Naruto smiled as he watched it, something only possible thanks in part to his hard work and now the hard work of his team. Izumi Shui, I hope you guys are resting easily today. He looked to the heavens, activating his Mangekyo without a thought. So guys, what do you think about this Naruto story? Tell me your opinion in the comments. And if you want more Naruto what if stories, make sure to subscribe to Universe of Naruto. Thanks for watching.